Chapter 4108. The first is here. So many supreme? Jian Wushuang secretly exclaimed. The supreme strong, the peak of the universe exists, even in the depths of the universe like the strong. It is very difficult to meet one, but now in the temple of life, right in front of him, there have been more than 10 extreme. And more than a dozen supremes are staring at him, obviously all because of him. Sword warriors, come here. Blood waves beckoned toward the sword warriors. Predecessor Xuebua. Jian Wushuang immediately came to Zuibo's side. I'll introduce it to you. The one next to me is a giant axe. He, like me, is also one of the chief supremes of the Temple of Life. Bloody Road. There are a total of 5 chiefs of the Supreme Palace of Life, all of whom are tops. Since this giant axe is also the chief supreme, it is naturally also a powerful one. It can open up the top supreme of the kingdom of God alone. I have seen the supreme axe. Jian Wushuanglian salutes respectfully. 3rd level dominates? The magnificent man's giant axe looked down at Jian Wushuang. Sword Wushuang, how long have you cultivated? More than 300,000 years. Jian Wushuangdo. Only more than 300,000 years? The supreme axe couldn't help wondering. The powerful men next to the Temple of Life next week were surprised when they heard this. For 300,000 years, it was too short for everyone present. You must know that the time required for an ordinary cultivator to grow from birth to is extremely long. Except for those who have a background in the sky and cultivated with a lot of resources, they can save a long cultivation time, but even in such cases, it only takes 300,000 years to reach the 3rd level master level, which is still considered to be that's great. But the sword is unparalleled, there is no background in the sky, and she is on his own, slowly practicing at the edge of the universe. The most important thing is that he is still the perfect life. Difficult to count. All these conditions combined, he still reached this step in about 300,000 years. It is incredible. It seems that it won't be long before my life shrine, and I will be able to give birth to another heavenly powerhouse. The giant axe laughed, but suddenly he turned his hands, and a whole body of crystal fruit appeared in his hands. He took the fruit in front of the sword without double sides. It's rare to see another perfect life with great potential in my palace of life, and it can't be without any expression. The god fruit of this middle-class rule can be regarded as a meeting gift for you. Meeting ceremony? Jian Wushuang stunned, hesitating. Let us take it down, this rule is so fruitful you need it. The blood wave on the side laughed. Thank you, Supreme Axe. Jian Wushuang no longer hesitated, reaching out to take over the crystal fruit. He put this crystal fruit in his hand, and Jian Wushuang felt the power of a good cosmic law from this fruit the first time. This rule of God fruit, although it is more common among the many God fruits in the universe, is also the most widely used. A law God fruit contains the power of the universe's laws. Under normal circumstances, a master if you can devour an ordinary inferior law God fruit, there is hope to understand a little law of the universe. Xuebo said, Sword unparalleled, have you ever understood the law of the universe? I have come to understand the laws of the universe. Jian Wushuang said, but did not say that he has reached a certain level of understanding of the laws of the universe. Bloodwave Supreme eyes brightened. Only the 3rd series dominates the hierarchy, and you can comprehend a rule of the universe, and this understanding is extraordinary. It's very good. Great Axe Supreme nodded with a smile. Since you have already realized a certain rule of the universe, then this rule of God fruit will be more useful to you. After all, those who do not understand the law of the universe, although there is a certain chance that they can understand it a little by swallowing the rule, it's too low, and if you realize a bit of the law of the universe, after you swallow this fruit, the speed of understanding the law of the universe will increase greatly in the next year. This is just the fruit of the top quality rule, and the giant axe has just given you the fruit of the middle class rule. But in the universe, you can sell 500,000 cosmic source stones. If you swallow this of quality, in the next 10 years, your speed of understanding the laws of the universe will increase greatly. Xiebo laughed. Jian Wushuang suddenly rejoiced. The of fruit, the rule of Chinese goods worth 500,000 yuan of stone, is expected to have a lot of effects even for the general supreme strongman, but for him, the effect is certainly greater. Of course, although the god of fruits is very useful to you, do hurry to swallow it. After all, there is only one god fruit. You can wait for an opportunity. For example, if you have a special occasion, swallow it again. Serving this fruit will do more with less. Shuebo said again. I see. The sword had no double focus. Well, the meeting gift is also given. If you practice well, I will leave first. Thank you, Axe Supreme. Jian Wushuang thanked again. The giant axe waved his hand and left. After the great axe left, Shuebo suddenly spoke. Blood Wave Supreme. A supreme next to him immediately stepped forward. This little guy has just come to the Temple of Life and has not been baptized by the Nirvana of Life, and this Nirvana of Life has always been your responsibility. You tell me, when will the Nirvana of Life be opened next time? Shuebo asked. The Nirvana of Life is usually opened once every 1 million years, but the sword Wushuang itself is perfect life, and it has only been cultivated for about 300,000 years now. Naturally, there is no need to wait so long, so I will go back and prepare a little one turn. 20 years later, Nirvana of Life was opened. Okay. Bloodwave nodded. Jian Wushuang, come with me, I will take you to the palace to find a place to stay. After the sword Wushuang and the blood wave left, the strong men of the Temple of Life who were strong in the Purple Temple were all talking about it. The treatment of perfect life is not the same. Not only will he let Bloodwave Supreme personally take him in and take him for a life test, he will even take him to find a place to live. Not only that, did you not see the giant axe just now? Did you give the gift of a meeting? I dare say that if you change to a creature of good quality, even if it is a creature of the highest level of life, the giant axe will not be of Chinese goods. As a gift to him. The fruit of the rule of Chinese goods is a fruit. Is it a more valuable treasure for ordinary supremacy? Chapter 4109. 2 more arrived today. But this sword Wushuang is really powerful. It is a perfect life in itself, and has also learned the laws of the universe. What's more important is that he has cultivated so far for more than 300,000 years. Such a genius is indeed worthy of the blood, and the Supreme takes it so seriously. 3 years of practice, you have such achievements. Look at it, maybe this sword Wushuang can really become another super existence of my life shrine in the future? These powerful men are talking quietly. They all feel that Jian Wushuang is highly treated, but no one feels that there is anything wrong with doing this. After all, in the Temple of Life, and even in the entire universe, strength determines status. Qi Jian Wushuang is the perfect level of life and understands the laws of the universe. Such super geniuses are absolutely rare in the Palace of Life, and they have a very high level of treatment, and that is justified. At best, these strong men are envious of 1 or 2, but there will be no complaints. The Shrine of Life is huge and immense, and there are countless powerful people hidden inside. With the sword unparalleled, Sun Shuebo passed through a large group of buildings, and finally came to a continuous mountain range. There are many kinds of manor houses in this huge mountain range. My Shrine of Life can be said to be the base of countless special lives in the entire universe. There are too many special lives throughout the vast universe, and those who choose to join my Shrine of Life account for more than half. And most of these special lives are wandering outside, and only a small part of them choose to live in the Palace of my life, but even if they are only a small part, there are still many. Because there are too many, there are 9 mountains in my Shrine of Life for living. Among them, the 1st to the 3rd mountains, the inhabitants are the supreme class strong, the 4th to the 9th mountains. The dweller is the master and the ruler of some rules, and you are now in the 6th mountain. This 6th mountain range stretches for 3 million miles and has countless manor houses, lofts, and temples. Many of them are uninhabited, and swords are unparalleled. You can choose a residence by yourself. Shuebo said. Wu Jianwushuang nodded. He let Ling Rushuang come out of the independent space of the town Tianbei, and immediately they searched in this sixth mountain for a while before they found a relatively satisfactory manor house as their residence. The sword is unparalleled. In the Palace of Life, generally for creature-level life, you are qualified to let the palace arrange some slaves and maids for you. You are a perfect life. Naturally you also have this authority. Should you arrange some for you? Asked again. Servant, maid? Jian Wushuang showed surprise. Don't worry, these slaves and maids have been carefully selected from the kingdom of God in my Palace of Life, and each one has been cultivated since childhood and is completely loyal to my Palace of Life. Shuebodeo. Slave is not needed, choose 10 maids for me. Jian Wushuangdo. Okay, you'll let people arrange it. Shuebo smiled slightly, and Jian Wushuang glanced at his wife beside him. He doesn't really need any maids. The reason why he wants to arrange 10 maids is purely for his wife. After all, I am in this Palace of Life. Most of the time is used for cultivation. I really cannot spend too much time with my wife, and my wife has no friends in this Palace of Life. For a long time, it is inevitable I feel boring, and with these maids, I can at least accompany my wife to talk. Yes, this sign is for you too. Blood Wave waved and took out a sign. What is this order? Jian Wushuang doubtfully accepted. This order symbol is the content of the 2nd to 6th volumes of the Magical Power of Life. Shuebo looked at Jian Wushuang and said, I told you before that, as a special life, to develop your own innate advantage, you must first rely on mystery. This life is supernatural. Normally, if you refined all 6 volumes, at least 60% of the innate advantages can be developed. You have only cultivated the first volume before, and only barely developed 10% of the innate advantages. After 20 years, E will take you to the nirvana of life. At that time, you will get the baptism of life, so that your innate advantage can be exploited as much as possible, and at that time, you can directly cultivate this magical power of life. Predecessor Bloodwave, do you want me to practice this supernatural power at the same time when performing the baptism of life? Jian Wushuang stunned. Shuebo nodded. Life magic is quite esoteric. Most people want to make all 6 scrolls of life magic. It is very difficult and the progress is very slow. This mystery will do more with less. Many of the special lives in the Shrine of My Life, mostly during the life baptism, practice this life power. Generally, you can cultivate the life power to the 4th or even the 5th volume, and cooperate with the life baptism to absorb a lot of treasures. You can develop your own innate advantages to 60% to 70%, and some can even develop to 80% or even 90%. Is it just 80% or 90%? Didn't you develop your innate advantage to 10%? Jian Wushuang asked. 10%, it is almost impossible to rely on mystery alone or special treasures, but the combination of the two is hopeful, but it is too difficult to fully develop all of our inherent advantages. Now, since the birth of my life shrine, I do know how many special lives I have, but I can truly develop my innate advantages perfectly. In the whole history, there are no more than 10. Blood Wave Road. Since the birth of the entire Shrine of Life, there have been less than 10? Jian Wushuang was startled. How long has it been since the creation of the Temple of Life? Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of chaos, even longer? How many special lives have you joined in the Temple of Life in these long years? This number can definitely scare people. But with so many special lives, there are only less than 10 people who can fully develop their innate advantages, which shows the difficulty. Of course, although the difficulty is great, at least some people have succeeded before. This is a great hope for Jian Wushuang. He is perfect life in itself, if he can fully develop his innate advantages. To fully develop your own innate advantages, you can work as hard as possible, but it is best not to give too much hope. Bloodwave is pouring a basin of cold water on Jian Wushuang. But you are perfect life, even if you will not, the innate advantage has been fully developed. Even if only 70% to 80% is developed, it should be very good. Chapter 41:10. The first is more. Well, everything I have to tell you has already told you. As for the rest, you should slowly explore it yourself. I will go first. Bloodwave said. Thank you, Senior Beibei. Jian Wushuang quickly thanked him. Xie Shuebo waved his hand and left directly. Fu Jun, this temple of life is really strong. Leng Rushuang sighed as he watched the blood waves disappear. The entire universe, countless special life base camps, of course, strong. Jian Wushuang nodded and looked at his wife. Shuang heir, I am afraid that we will spend a long time here. As long as you are by my side, but anywhere, you can. Leng Rushuang smiled. Unfortunately, Qing heir and Xian heir are in the early world of God. If they were here, it would be perfect. Qing'er and Xian'er are too weak. They still haven't been able to break through and become the master. There is no capital in the universe at all. Wait for a while. They will break through and become the master. I am in the depths of the universe. I also completely stabilized my heels, and I thought of a way to take them all over. At that time, our family would reunite. Jian Wushuang said. Well, I believe this, it won't be too far away. Cold Rushuang nodded. The following time, Jian Wushuang became familiar with the environment of the Life Shrine. But soon, the news of a perfect life in the Shrine of Life also spread throughout the Shrine of Life. Is also in the 6th mountain, in a delicate loft group. Master, master. An old man in black hurriedly walked to the top floor of a loft. I was there was a white-haired boy, drinking the wine in a bowl leisurely. This white-haired boy looks like Wenyu, has a beautiful face, and is charming. It looks better than many women, especially the pair of eyes of the white-haired boy. They are like gems and emit a special light, which is extremely attractive. Slave, what's so anxious? The white-haired boy still drank, and glanced at the old man in black casually. Is the name of the old man in black. The old man in black was himself one of the slaves of the white-haired young man. Because he was most heavily regarded by the white-haired young man, he would rank first among many slaves. Master, just got the news, there is a red sky full of light in the Life Test Temple, there is a new perfect life, came to the Temple of Life. Inu said. Oh, a new perfect life? The white-haired boy looked, his wine bowl dropped involuntarily. After all these years, has the palace finally ushered in a new perfect life? Slave, can you find out? The white-haired boy asked. It has been found out that this person's name is Jian Wushuang, who was personally brought back from the outside world. He heard that the sword has been cultivated for more than 300,000 years, but has reached the 3rd level of domination. I have also realized a trace of the law of the universe. Inu said, understanding a bit of the law of the universe? The white-haired boy stared. He practiced for 300,000 years and reached the 3rd level, which he didn't care about. After all, there are various opportunities for the promotion of the realm. There is not much difference between 300,000 years of cultivation and 3 million years of cultivation. But at the 3rd level of the level, you can understand a bit of the law of the universe, which is not ordinary. You must know that perfect life belongs to the rare horns, plus the 3rd level can understand the laws of the universe, which must belong to the most incredible super genius in the universe. The potential is so great that it is completely inestimable. It is a perfect life in itself, and it is able to have a little cosmic law in the 3rd order level field. It is no wonder that the Supreme Master of Blood is going to lead in person. The white-haired boy smiled slightly. Not only that, after the sword Wushuang tested his level of life, the Great Axe Supreme rushed there in person and gave the sword Wushuang a meeting gift on the spot. He was ordered to manage the Nirvana Supreme of Life Nirvana Pool and ask him to open the Nirvana Pool of Life after 20 years. The god of fruits of Chinese goods rule? The white-haired teenager's complexion finally showed some changes. Well, even when I entered the Temple of Life, I was only given an enlightenment god fruit. It was still inferior. The value is less than 100,000 source stones, but this man named Jian Wushuang was given a fruit of the rule of Chinese goods, or was given by the Supreme Axe Supreme himself. Seeing those old guys in the womb, compared to me, we should be more optimistic about this sword. Not at all. A slave nodded. Now the news of the sword unparalleled has spread throughout the Temple of Life. In our 6th mountain alone, a large number of servants quietly talk about it, saying that the Temple of Life, the senior executives, are too eccentric and are fighting against you. Eccentricity? There is nothing eccentric or eccentric. In the Palace of Life, any resources must be tested for their own strength. Since those old guys are optimistic about this sword Wushuang, they feel that the sword Wushuang has greater potential than me, so I only need just prove that the sword Wushuang is worse than me. The white-haired boy smiled. Slave, do you know where the sword Wushuang lives? Like us, also in this sixth mountain, master, are you going to find the sword Wushuang trouble now? Inu looked over. Stupid. The white-haired boy rebuked. This sword Wushuang has just arrived at the Temple of Life, and has not even visited Nirvana Pool of Life. If I go to him now, even if it is a shot, defeating him is nothing glorious. To fight with him and prove that he is far inferior to me, it also requires him to go through the baptism of life, develop his innate advantages to his extreme, come out of the nirvana of life, and then go no later. The master taught it. A slave smiled. Wait, in another 20 years, he will go to the nirvana pool of life. At that time, we can take a good look at how much benefits he can get in the nirvana pool of life. His inherent advantages can also develop a few percent. The white-haired teenager smiled. The owner went to the nirvana of life for the first time. With the help of the magical power of life, he developed 70% of his innate advantages in one breath. Later, he got some special opportunities to develop his innate advantages again. Now he has developed 80%. In terms of life, being able to develop 80% of his own innate advantages is very good, and the sword is unparalleled, but he has been practicing for more than 300,000 years. He is definitely not as good as the owner. I guess he is in the nirvana pool of life and can use himself. It has been considered good to develop 60% of the innate advantages, said Inu. Let's wait and see. The white-haired teenager also had a look of hope in his heart. Chapter 11011 Expectation, page 1/1. Bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 4111. Two more arrived today. The Shrine of Life, as a transcendental force that has dominated the endless years in the universe, is also the base of countless special life in the universe, and its old nest has always been calm. Over the years, the battle with the Temple of Life is endless. It is as powerful as the Diwu Temple, and it is incompatible with the Temple of the Life. However, no matter how powerful the fight is, the Diwu Temple cannot threaten the old nest of the Temple of Life. Since the creation of the Life Shrine, no one side or strong has dared to kill the old nest of the Life Shrine. Those who dare to do so have died. And Jian Wushuang stayed in the Temple of Life. Naturally, there is no need to worry about any danger. Blink, 20 years have passed. Sword unparalleled. Ji Honghong's voice was over the manor where Jian Wushuang lived. Qi Jian Wushuang, and cold as frost when even swept from the manor, came to the void. 2R. Jian Wushuang looked at the man and the woman in front of him. Both of them are the masters, and they are the masters of the ultimate level. In the old nest of the Temple of Life, even the supreme strong are very easy to see. As for the ultimate dominator, the number is even greater. My two are the masters of His Majesty's Majesty, and upon His Majesty's orders, I will take you to the Nirvana Pool of Life. The woman in red said with a smile. Is that so? Jian Wushuang knew it, and then he looked at the cold frost next to him. Frost, let me go first. Nodded coldly. Immediately, Jian Wushuang followed the man and the woman and rushed towards Nirvana Lake. On the way. Two people, you just said, you are the masters of His Majesty. What does this mean? Jian Wushuang wondered inwardly. Because they are both practitioners of the Temple of Life, these two ultimate masters would not use the word Her Majesty if they were only to assist the First Lord to manage the Nirvana of Life. Her Majesty is usually attached to the other party or loyal to the other party. When he heard Jian Wushuang's inquiry, the man and the woman glanced at each other, and then the purple-haired man chuckled. Jian Wushuang, you just came to the Temple of Life. You do and know a lot of things. There are many, but resources are still limited. In order to obtain these resources, there is naturally great competition in the Temple of Life. A perfect life like you or most of the creature-level life, because of the high level of life and the high treatment in the palace of life, naturally don't worry about not being able to get resources, but those more general creature-level life, or for those universe-level and initial-level life, fewer resources can be obtained. In addition, many senior strengths are weak, and the chances of obtaining resources are scarce. So at this time, the best way to get more resources is to find a true strongman and attach yourself to that strongman. Like the two of us, they are just ordinary cosmic life. When they first arrived at the Temple of Life, they were not the ultimate masters. In addition, the advantages of developing in the nirvana of life were not many, and their potential was limited, so they were not obtained. Too many resources, but the two of us are clever enough to attach to His Majesty the Supreme One, who is the one who manages the nirvana pool of life and also has a certain power and status in the palace. Naturally, the two of us will follow suit. There are many benefits, and now they have reached the ultimate dominance level. So it is. Sword unparalleled. No matter where they are, there will always be competition, even if it is as strong as the Temple of Life. In fact, these things have been public in the Palace of Life for a long time, and with more and more competition, factions have appeared in the Palace of Life. The competition of these factions is more intense, but the competition of these factions, they are all supreme, and most of our masters have nothing to do with it. After the Zifa man finished, he looked at Jian Wushuang. Jiang Wushuang, in fact, is the most comfortable and perfect level of life like you. Once you come to the Temple of Life, you can get all the resources you want, and even the Supreme Axe will give you a Chinese rule of gods as a gift. This kind of treatment has not been owned by a few people in the Palace of Life, and you don't need to depend on other strong ones at all, because the Supreme Master of Blood and the Great Master of the Axe are obviously optimistic about you. You can be regarded as their faction naturally in the palace. No one dares to neglect you. Wu Jianwushuang heard it, but he smashed his mouth. He didn't know these things before, but now it sounds that the Supreme of Blood Wave and the Supreme of Axe should also belong to one faction. A faction can have two top Supreme. This faction should also be very strong in the Temple of Life. Two people, thank you for telling each other. Jian Wushuang thanked him. My conversation with these two people gave Jian Wushuang a new understanding of the Temple of Life. But soon, under the guidance of the two men, Jian Wushuang came to a vast open space. There are already many people waiting in this open space. Okay? Qi Jian Wushuang looked at these people in the open space. They gathered together in pairs, and there were actually hundreds of people, and most of them were supreme, but they did not exist. And most of these dominate. The strength is more general, most of them in the 3rd and 4th levels, as for the 5th level, the ultimate dominance level, but very few. These people, like you, have just arrived in the Temple of Life not long before. This time they will also enter the Nirvana pool of life and experience the baptism of life with you," said the man with purple hair. "Are they all new?" Jian Wushuang looked around at these people in the open space, but he found that most of these people's eyes had been fixed on him. Is he the sword unparalleled? It is him. He is the only perfect life among us. Perfect life. It is said that less than 5 perfect lives are still alive in the entire life shrine. No wonder the life shrine attaches such importance to him. Like this life nirvana, we are all on our own. He came, but he was actually led by the 2 ultimate masters. This treatment is really unusual. No big deal, even perfect life may not be able to become a top power in the future, and we are only initial and cosmic level life. In the future, it is not impossible to become a top power. Everything depends on future efforts. Opportunity. Yes, the connected baptism of life. For those of us with lower levels of life, the development of innate advantages is easier, but he is a perfect life. The development of innate advantages is more difficult than us. We are in the nirvana pool of life. With the help of life magic power, it is not difficult to develop 70% to 80% of our innate advantages. It is estimated that it is difficult to develop even 60% of Chengdu. There are many newcomers and many discussions. Chapter 41:12. The higher the level of life, the more difficult it is to develop its own innate advantages, which has long been recognized. These new people think that the development of Jian Wushuang's innate advantages should be inferior to them, and it is reasonable, but they forget that Jian Wushuang is a perfect life. Even if only 50% to 60% of their innate advantages are developed, it is far better than these. The innate advantages of life development at the initial level, the cosmic level, and even the creation level are much stronger. Suddenly a figure appeared on the open space. It is the one who manages the nirvana pool of life. After the arrival of the Supreme Master, he first looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile in his eyes, and then looked around. "Are all people here?" I Supreme asked. "My lord, all the special lives that joined my life shrine during this time are here. There are a total of 438 people, of which 1 is the perfect level of life, 4 are the level of fortune, and 160 are the level of the universe. 1, the initial level, is 272. Among the men and women who led Jian Wushuang before, the woman in red said, Supreme nodded, but immediately waved. On the empty space in front of him, a heavy space channel appeared immediately. Remember, after you enter the nirvana pool of life, your body will begin to undergo metamorphosis, and this metamorphosis will take a long time. You can practice life magic while metamorphosing and develop your own innate advantages as much as possible. After the transformation is over, you can come out of the nirvana pool of life, because since the transformation has stopped, no matter how hard you try next, you don't want to promote it in the slightest. 20 Supreme commanded. Many newcomers in the open space, including Jian Wushuang, nodded in unison. "Well, let's go in." Supremely. Immediately, many newcomers in the open space swarmed towards the cosmic passage, and Jian Wushuang also directly entered the cosmic passage. Soon, all newcomers in the open space have entered the nirvana pool of life. And these new talents just went in. A figure suddenly appeared next to Supreme Master E. Extreme Blood Wave. I Supreme looked at the person, saluting slightly. "Ye those little guys, have you gone in?" Blood Wave Supreme looked over. "Yes, including the little fellow named Jian Wushuang who you value. He has now entered the nirvana pool of life. This little guy can achieve the achievements he has just achieved by practicing 300,000 years. He also understands a bit of the law of the universe and is extremely talented. Well, it is no accident that in this nirvana pool of life, at least he can develop more than 70% of his innate advantages." Z Supreme laughed. "Is it 70%? Blood Wave Supreme looked for a moment, then asked with a smile, "How much of the source of life is left in the nirvana pool of life?" It is not too long to put the source of life in the nirvana of life. Although there have been more than 10 baptisms in life before, about a quarter should be left now. Said Izuan. "A quarter?" Blood Wave Supreme frowned. "Too few, go for a new source of life. A quarter is still small. The source of life is the most important treasure that constitutes nirvana of life. The large nirvana pool of life can help a special life develop its own innate advantages as much as possible. The reason why it has such a large effect is largely the source of life. The source of life is also extremely precious in the universe. Under normal circumstances, a complete source of life can allow life nirvana to perform dozens of life baptisms. It's like more than a dozen baptisms of life recently, because there are more creature-level lives that come to baptism, and there are several lives at the peak of fortune level, so I would like to thank you, but after more than a dozen baptisms, it's just a cost 3/4. I still have a quarter of the source of life, and it is reasonable to support the baptism of life several times. Don't forget, there is still a perfect life for the baptism of life this time, and this little guy has huge potential. Who knows how many sources of life he can absorb in the nirvana pool of life, so prepare a little more, there is no harm. Anyway, this source of life is put into the nirvana pool of life in advance, and the efficacy will not be weakened." Blood Wave Supreme said. "It makes sense. Okay, I put a new source of life into the nirvana pool of life." When the Supreme Master said, he waved his hand directly to tear the space and entered the nirvana pool of life. The nirvana pool of life, said to be a pool, is actually a vast blue ocean. Many new people who entered the nirvana pool of life came to this cyan ocean and immediately plunged into the endless cyan water. They all know that the most important thing in this nirvana pool of life is these cyan seawater. This cyan seawater contains extremely unique medicinal power. These medicinal powers are formed by the costly life palace. Wu Jian Wushuang did not hesitate and swept directly into the cyan ocean. As soon as his body swept into the ocean, he immediately sensed a scorching strange power around him, flowing towards his body. "It's hot." Jian Wushuang raised his eyebrows, only feeling that his entire body became hot instantly. The strange and hot power, along his pores, instantly changed his whole body and was stimulated by these strange powers. His body, the hidden forces, www.novel.com, are beginning to be inspired. These are the innate advantages of Jian Wushuang himself. A perfect life. The innate advantages are far beyond the imagination of ordinary practitioners, but these forces have been hidden in his body for a long time. He has been unable to excite these forces and cannot exert them. The role of these cyan seawater in the nirvana of life is to fully stimulate these hidden forces. So special. Qi Jian Wushuang has felt that as the hidden forces in his body are gradually being developed, the development process is very comfortable, and his body is undergoing transformation during the development. The role of this nirvana pool of life has begun to show. I can't waste time and start practicing the magical power of life directly. With a heart move, Jian Wushuang began to cultivate the second volume of Magical Power of Life. He has made the first volume of the Magical Power of Life long ago. With the experience of practicing the first volume, he has now cultivated the second volume and is also familiar with the road. It only took less than half a day that the second volume of the Magical Power of Life was refined, and as the second volume of the Magical Power of Life was refined, the swordless twin form was a shock. The hidden power in his body was it has also been developed tremendously. Chapter 41:13. The first is more. After the second volume, followed by the third and fourth volumes. In the nirvana of life, everyone is silent in the transformation of the body and the development of their own innate advantages. Under normal circumstances, only by refining the 6 volumes of life magical powers, it is possible to develop more than 60% of its innate advantages. However, the life magical powers and the cyan water in the nirvana pool of life are combined with each other, but it is easy to develop their own innate advantages to 60% or even 70%. Then, after Jian Wushuang refined the 4th volume of life magical power, his deity finally ushered in a greater transformation. Bang Rong. I saw Jian Wushuang's demon trembling madly. At this moment, he seemed like a huge devouring black hole, bursting out an incredible devouring power, madly devouring the endless cyan water around it. Did the body finally start to skyrocket? Jian Wushuang's eyes had already been opened, his hands were clenched tightly, his eyes burst into unprecedented sharpness. I spent 20 years in the Temple of Life. He had learned that special lives, especially those above the level of good fortune, had developed more than 70% of his innate advantages. This explosion of the body can make his body countless times larger, and with such a huge body, the divine power that can be stored will also become more vast and immense. He is like the guardian Yenshan that Jian Wushuang met when he first entered the Temple of Life. His body is a huge mountain with a height of 6,000 feet and a length of 8,000 miles. This is incredible. And because of such a huge and immortal body, this Yenshan is not even afraid of the top supreme, even the most invincible universe overlords in the universe. The invincible existence of the supreme kills him in front of him, and he will take whatever measures no. These immense gods are envied by countless practitioners. Wu Qian Mountain is just the life of the highest level of creation, and Jian Wushuang is the perfect level of life. Regardless of the potential, he is much larger than Yenshan. Even in the volume of the body, although he is a human practitioner in nature, he may not be able to surpass Yenshan. Now, Jian Wushuang has ushered in the opportunity for his body to soar. The opportunity is in front of me, just to see how much I can make my own body. Jian Wushuang clenched his hands, at this moment, desperately devouring the endless cyan water around. The cyan seawater contains unique power. After being swallowed into his body, most of them are directly refined into his own divine power, and with the refining, the volume of his body is also skyrocketing at this moment. In the blink of an eye, it has skyrocketed to 100 feet, but this is just the beginning. Boom rumbling. Jian Wushuang's deities trembled, and with a steady stream of cyan water entering his body, his deities exploded wildly, as if a giant stood up. 100 feet high, thousands feet high, thousands feet high. I was madly skyrocketing. In the nirvana pool of life, in addition to Sword Wushuang, there are 437 other special lives. They are also cultivators' life magical powers, so as to allow their innate advantages to be developed as much as possible. But at this moment, they could all feel the shock of the nirvana pool of life, and they looked at the source of the shock immediately. What is that? It's so big, it must be tens of thousands of feet high? It is a deity. It has a statement above the level of good fortune to develop its innate advantage to 70%, and it has ushered in the opportunity for the deity to skyrocket. However, this deity may be too big. The appearance of this body is that sword unparalleled. It turned out to be him? He is the perfect life, so he developed his innate advantage to 70% so quickly? Within the nirvana pool of life, there was a shock. Many special lives who also develop innate advantages in the nirvana pool of life. When they entered the nirvana pool of life before, most of them thought that the sword is a perfect life, and it should be extremely difficult to develop their innate advantages. How long does it take for nirvana to enter the nirvana of life now? The other party has already developed 70% of his innate advantages, and the gods have begun to skyrocket. His body is still getting bigger. Looks like this. Is it hundreds of miles high? Many special lives in the nirvana pool are shocking. It's true that Jian Wushuang's current body is still rising wildly. By now, the height of the body alone has exceeded 100 miles. And the body soared to this step. Jian Wushuang also gradually felt the kind of pain coming from the body, and this pain feeling, as the body continued to skyrocket, began to gradually increase. Sure enough, the explosion of the body to a certain degree will cause the risk of collapse, and my pain has just begun, which means that I should not have reached the limit of collapse now, and I can continue to improve. Squint. It's like eating alone. Eating too much will swell your stomach. Jian Wushuang is the perfect life. By developing his own innate advantage to more than 70%, he can indeed inflate his body to a whole new level by devouring divine power, but this kind of body boom is not endless. There is also a degree. The only thing to do is to find this degree, but to support it as long as possible so that your body can soar to the extreme. And the pain coming from his deity alone can be completely ignored by his ability to bear, obviously far from the extreme that his deity can reach, far from it. Jian Wushuang is still devouring the endless turquoise sea water around as his body grows larger. The devouring power is getting more and more horrible. Before long, his body height has already exceeded 3,000 miles. At this moment, he was standing in the nirvana pool of life, and he was simply a giant. Every move was enough to cause the whole nirvana pool to cause movement. And as his body soared to the point where he is now, he absorbed the blue water around him faster and more amazingly. I saw the whole nirvana pool of life, madly rolled up under his devour. The endless sea water rushed towards him frantically from all directions, and he had completely become the absolute core of this nirvana pool of life. As for the other special life in the nirvana pool of life, it can only barely protect a piece of blue sea water around itself and use it for the transformation of his body. I'm over 3,000 miles tall, but I'm still getting bigger. 3,000 miles high, God. I remember the guardian Yenshan we met when we first entered the Palace of Life, and his body length is only 6,000 miles. Is this sword unparalleled in size capable of surpassing that Yenshan? Chapter 113, God Body Explosion, page 1/1, bookmark for easy reading. Chapter 41:14. Hey, 2 more arrived today. In the nirvana of life, everyone is watching the change of Jian Wushuang deity. The sword's godless body also went from 3,000 miles to 5,000 miles, and it only took a moment to soar to 10,000 miles. There are 10,000 miles of body, which has even surpassed that guardian Yenshan in size, but Jian Wushuang's body is still skyrocketing. 10,000 miles, 15,000 miles, 20,000 miles, 30,000 miles. When the body soared to 30,000 miles, the pain of Jian Wushuang's body and consciousness intensified, and the sword's look began to change slightly. The limit is coming soon. The sword is dignified, but his body is still rising wildly. 24,000 miles, 50,000 miles, until the skyrocketing to 55,000 miles, the severe pain from the sword Wushuang deity and consciousness has reached the extreme. I feel like I've almost reached the limit, but as long as the divine body does not collapse and the divine power can continue to change, I can continue to enhance ascension. Jian Wushuang bit his lip tightly, and the pain he suffered at this moment was enough to break his consciousness. Alas, he is still stubbornly supporting. And he has slowed down the speed of the surrounding cyan water, but the cyan water is still being absorbed by him. As time went on, Jian Wushuang has maintained this state of near collapse of the body, and has supported it for nearly half an hour. His body has also increased from 55,000 miles to 68,000 miles. At this point, Jian Wushuang finally reached his extreme. At this moment, his body was completely saturated. He even felt that if he swallowed even a little bit of blue water like that, his body would collapse and burst directly. That's it. Jian Wushuang sighed softly, and his body began to shrink at a speed that was visible to the naked eye. Divine compression. The reason why Jaina Yanshan's deity can only stay in the Temple of Life for a long time is because the body is too large and cannot be compressed by the divine power, which makes it difficult to move and can only stay there. Wu Keshuang's current body size is much larger than that of Yanshan Mountain, but he can perform divine compression. The divine power was compressed, and soon his body returned to its original appearance. Although the volume has recovered, in fact, the magical power in Jian Wushuang is far worse than before. The divine body has skyrocketed to the extreme. I can no longer absorb the surrounding blue seawater, but the transformation of my divine body is still not over, and the development of my own innate advantages has not reached the limit. Jian Wushuang smiled, and slowly closed his eyes again. In the development of his own innate advantages, he has not completely refined the fifth volume of the Life Shrine, which is naturally far from the perfect development of innate advantages. The following time, Jian Wushuang set out to practice the fifth volume of Life Magic. In all corners of Life Nirvana, those who are also trying to develop innate advantages are relieved when they see the sword unparalleled size shrink. He was in a void among them, and the emperor was standing there, and his gaze was in the direction that Jian Wushuang was. Just that body, it should be almost 70,000 miles, right? There is a shock of color on the face of Supreme Master. God body that is nearly 70,000 miles. Hey, I have managed this life nirvana for so many years. After living a lot of life above the natural level, he has developed more than 70% of the innate advantages in the nirvana of life. The body has skyrocketed, but the body has skyrocketed to a height of nearly 70,000 miles. It's too bad. Xuanyi supremely secretly praised him, but soon he returned to God and began to search the whole life nirvana. This investigation, Supreme's eyes were instantly rounded. How is it possible? I Supreme completely froze. The source of life I just put in has turned out to be less than half? I Supreme was stunned. You know, this nirvana of life originally had a quarter of its source left. 1/4 of the source of life, according to the Supreme One, can fully support the baptism of life several times. Yun Ku later listened to the suggestion of Supreme Blood, considering that there is a perfect life among the many lives entering the nirvana of life, so he put a new source of life in. But now, not only the original 1/4 source of life has been consumed, but even that new source of life has now been consumed by more than half, and the rest is obviously less than half. This all adds up, which is equivalent to consuming nearly a full source of life. This is only one baptism of life, and it is not over yet? The sword is unparalleled, that is the sword unparalleled. Tuan Yi's supreme eyes flickered with strange light. Before his god's body skyrocketed, I also carefully searched. There are still many quarters of the source of life before. Yes, but with the explosion of his deities, not only that 1/4 of the source of life is gone, but even this new source of life has consumed more than half. I can be sure that all the other little guys combined will not consume 1/10 of the source of life, but this time they consumed nearly a complete source of life, and they should all be owned by this sword. Absorbed. No wonder his godly body has soared to such an extent. If he is a deity of nearly 70,000 miles, if he becomes supreme in the future, who can rely on him for such a deity? He sighed in his heart. He didn't feel bad about the consumption of the source of life. After all, the source of life itself is to allow the special life under the palace of life to develop its own innate advantages as much as possible, and Jian Wushuang, a perfect life with such a huge potential, can use this source of life to obtain great benefits and transformation. Is what they want to see. I'm really curious. This little guy will have a lot of changes after going out of nirvana of life. Yun Yi Supreme had a glimmer of expectation in his heart, and then he didn't stay in nirvana of life anymore, but left directly. Already. After all, the process of soaring the most costly source of life has ended, and the remaining sources of life should be enough for swords to use them, and he need not worry about it anymore. And shortly after, Supreme left the nirvana of life, Jian Wushuang has refined the 5th volume of life magical power, and his own innate advantages have been further developed. This development made Jian Wushuang awaken his talents instantly. Chapter 41:15. The first is more. Well, actually awaken 2 talents at the same time? Jian Wushuang was shocked inside. When he made the 5th volume of life supernatural power and his own innate advantage was further developed, he awakened his own natural supernatural power, but what he didn't expect was that he even awakened 2 natural supernatural powers at the same time. The 2 kinds of talents are life deterrence and divine power breakdown. Jian Wushuang got all the information of these 2 talents as soon as possible. Life deterrence is based on its own level of life, causing momentary oppression and deterrence to life below itself, and putting opponents into a short period of deterrence. This talent is supernatural. Jian Wushuang is not unfamiliar. When he was still weak at the beginning, he received the decisive spell taught by his master Xuani. The decisive spell can also make use of his own innate advantages, and at the same time, it can cause life-level deterrence to the opponent, but the effect is more general, that's it. But now that this talent is awakened, no matter who he meets in the future, as long as the other person's life level is not as good as himself, even if he is a superpower, he will be instantly deterred by life, but the effect intensity is different. This move can undoubtedly become his killer in the future. As for the second natural power supernatural power decomposition, it is a natural life supernatural power, which is also very good. I actually awakened the 2 talents at the same time, and I was previously recognized by the laws of the universe. The laws of the universe also gave me a gift of the primitive universe. That is to say, I now have 3 talents at the same time? Sword Wushuang's inner shock. A gifted miracle alone cannot be awakened by ordinary people or ordinary life. Under normal circumstances, life above the level of good fortune will develop 70% to 80% of the innate advantage to have a certain chance to awaken talents, but this chance is not high. And even if the awakening talent is supernatural, it is only 1. He is now like a sword warrior, awakening 2 talented supernatural powers at the same time. Coupled with the original laws of the universe, he has 3 talented supernatural powers at hand. This is a freak. Although I don't know what is going on, but the more awakened by talent, the better it is for me. Jian Wushuang also had a surprise in his heart, followed him to close his eyes again. Stuck in him, his divine body, his divine power, still transforming. Life is outside the nirvana pool, on the vast open ground. Bloodwave Supreme is still waiting there silently, and has not left. Xuanyi Supreme stepped out of the nirvana pool of life and came to the side of Xuanbo Supreme. Yi, what's wrong? Xuanbo asked. Monster, Supreme Bloodwave, the little guy you called Jian Wushuang is a monster, sighed. Oh, Shuebo frowned. How do you say? He stayed in the nirvana pool of life for a long time, and his innate advantage has been developed to more than 70%. It has ushered in the opportunity for the god's body to skyrocket. As a result, the boy suddenly skyrocketed his god's body to nearly 70,000 miles. All of a sudden, the remaining 1/4 of the source of life before the nirvana of life was consumed, not to mention, even the source of life that I just put in consumed more than half of it instantly. That is, this kid at the moment when the body of God was soaring, it absorbed an almost complete source of life, which was incredible. Almost 70,000 miles of body? Absorbed a complete source of life? Sieba's eyes lit up. It seems that this little guy has gained a lot in the nirvana pool of life, nearly 70,000 miles. A tall body, alas, is a lot bigger than that Yenshan. No, I don't know if he has the awakening talent. If he awakens the talent again, then his gain will be really great. Together. This is pure luck. After all, even if he is the perfect level of life, he has also developed his innate advantages to more than 70%, but it is still difficult to say whether he can awaken talents. Shuebo smiled. The awakening of God's natural powers is indeed pure luck. If you are lucky, you will be able to awaken. If you are unlucky, even if you develop your innate advantage to 90%, it is useless. Of course, if you can perfectly develop your own innate advantages, you will certainly be able to awaken talents. Wait for this little guy to come out of the nirvana of life, we will know if he asks. Shuebo smiled slightly and continued to wait here. After a while, more than half a month passed. In the nirvana pool of life, the transformation of many people's bodies and divine power has stopped, and they have all come out of the nirvana pool of life. In these more than half a month, these special lives entering the nirvana pool of life have more or less gained a lot, and their innate advantages have generally been developed to more than 60%. After all, for those with lower levels of life, the innate advantage is easier to develop. The life magical power cooperates with the nirvana pool of life, and can casually develop its own innate advantage to 60% to 70%, even if it is developed to 1989 Chengdu. It is a pity that although a few of these people have developed their innate advantages to 80% or even 90%, but because their own life level is too low, they have not ushered in the opportunity for the surge of the deities, nor have they awakened the talents. As for the few creatures who entered the nirvana pool of life this time, only one person was lucky. He developed his own innate advantage to 70%, and also ushered in the opportunity for the divine body to soar. Unfortunately, the divine body is only soared to 300 feet high and stopped. The 33-foot-tall body is already quite huge compared to ordinary practitioners, but compared with the bodies at levels such as Jian Wushuang and Yenshan, it is a small point, and he does not have the awakening talent. It was 5 days later, almost all of the special lives that entered Nirvana pool this time have come out. The only one that has not come out is Jian Wushuang. There is only that little one left, Supreme said. After all, that little guy is the perfect level of life, and it is normal for the body to degenerate for a long time, but everyone else has already come out of the Nirvana pool of life, and by reason, his body degeneration has also ended. Shuebo said. Wait a second. Wait a moment. After another 3 days, the space channel in front finally moved. A beam of light flickered, and Jian Wushuang stepped out of the space channel. Okay. After walking out of the space passage, Jian Wushuang immediately saw the crowd in the open space in front of him. Not only does it have blood waves, 1 or 2 supreme existences, but also the many special lives who entered the Nirvana pool of life with him are also quietly waiting here. The fastest version of the mobile version update URL. Chapter 41:16. 2 more arrived today. These people, when they were in the Nirvana pool of life, all saw the sword Wushuang deity soared to a height of nearly 70,000 miles, and they were shocked inside. Originally, they could leave directly after coming out of the Nirvana pool of life, but none of them left and chose to wait here, just to see how much benefit Jian Jianshuang, the perfect life, had in the Nirvana pool of life. Jian Wushuang, come here. Bloodwave Supreme Zhao Jinshuang beckoned. Predecessor Shuebwa, Sun Yi Supreme. Jian Wushuang stepped forward immediately, respectfully saluting. I heard you say that you have gained a lot in the nirvana pool of life, but on the body of God, it has skyrocketed to 70,000 miles? Bloodwave Supreme looked at Jian Wushuang. Less than 70,000 miles, only about 68,000 miles, Jian Wushuang replied. That's also great. Xie Buishuan smiled, but followed him solemnly and asked, Little guy, I ask you, have you awakened the gift of magic in the nirvana of life? Next to the Supreme Master, also looked forward to Jian Wushuang with some expectations. As for those special lives around them, they all stared at them. When he heard the Supreme inquiry, Jian Wushuang did not answer, but smiled slightly and blinked at the same time. Bloodwave Supreme knew immediately. Ah! Supreme Xiebo laughed. There was a smile on the face of the next Supreme Master. Sure enough, even the gifted supernatural powers have been awakened, which is really enviable. Bloodwave Supreme and Ji Supreme only know that Jian Wushuang has awakened one of his talents, but subconsciously thinks that Jian Wushuang has awakened one of his talents, but in fact Jian Wushuang has awakened two talents at the same time. Of course, this Blood Bow Extreme did not ask, Jian Wushuang would not take the initiative to say. The divine body has skyrocketed to 68,000 years, and the talented supernatural powers have also been awakened. The only remaining problem now is the specific development of your innate advantage and the change in the strength of your own divine power. Bloodwave Supreme said, Divine strength changes? Jian Wushuang looked. Under normal circumstances, a special life, with the development of its own innate advantages, the strength of divine power will also be greatly improved. This improvement is related to the level of life and the degree of innate advantages of development, such as the general initial life. Once they develop their innate advantages to the extreme, their divine strength will be about 100 times that of ordinary practitioners. Bloodwave Supreme said, 100 times? Jian Wushuang moved inside. Divine strength is 100 times stronger than ordinary practitioners? Take an ordinary master. For an ordinary practitioner, the divine strength is naturally the ordinary master strength, but the special life at the same level, but the strength of the divine strength is 100 times that of the normal master. Is this just initial life? What about higher cosmic, fortune level life? Jian Wushuang asked. If the development of the innate advantage of the universe level life is extreme, the strength of the divine power can reach 500 times that of ordinary practitioners, and the development of the innate advantage of the creature-level life is extreme, and the strength of the divine power is about 2,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. Bloody Supreme Road. 2,000 times? Jian Wushuang stunned. This is the creation-level life, and the perfect level life that is above the creation-level life is that the entire universe is rare. Such a life is extremely difficult to form, and its innate advantage is much greater than the creation-level life. Normal conditions under the perfect life, if they develop their innate advantages to the extreme, the strength of their divine power can reach 10,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. Bloodwave Supreme said. Jian Wushuang was a little dreadful. 10,000 times? What is this concept? Of course, as a perfect life, it is too difficult to develop your own innate advantages. It is difficult to achieve the strength of natural divine power to reach 10,000 times that of ordinary practitioners, but even if you only use your own innate advantages develop 60% to 70%, the strength of the divine power is also 6,000 times or 7,000 times that of ordinary practitioners, which is still very high. You guys, you ushered in the opportunity for the soaring of the gods in that nirvana pool, and you can awaken talents. Then your innate advantage has been developed at least 70%, and maybe even more than that, but we have developed a few percent. You have to make a judgment based on your current strength. How to test the strength of this divine power? Jian Wushuang asked. This is simple. In my palace of life, there is a place to test the strength of the divine power. You can accurately check how many times your strength is the same level practitioner. I will take you there. Jian Wushuang nodded. Come with me. Bloodwave Supreme took Jian Wushuang directly to the side of the void. As for the Supreme Master he did not keep up, but looked around the people. Shen said, "Well, this is the end of this baptism of life, you all go back." Having said that, Supreme turned and left. On the open ground, those who came out of the nirvana pool of life looked at each other, each one looking quite complex. The one named Jian Wushuang is obviously the perfect life, not only ushered in the skyrocketing divine body, but also awakened the magical powers of the gods? It's really good luck. Indeed, this luck is a bit better. Just such a huge divine body is enough to overcome the sky. In addition, he has awakened the talented supernatural power. This sword is unparalleled, and the real potential is infinite. His innate advantage has also been developed at least 70%, which means that his strength of the divine power is at least 7,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. Since then, he has been in the universe, the advantage is too great. If one day he can break through the Supreme, that breakthrough is estimated to be the top level. The people present secretly groaned. This time the baptism of life let them fully understand the Jian Wushuang against the sky. At the same time they also understand how great the potential of Jian Wushuang in the future. Such a monster has made them completely unhappy about any attempt to compete. Unless they can break through the Supreme in the future, they are destined to look up. And while Bloodwave Supreme took the sword unparalleled to perform the divine power test, in the 6th mountain range, in the exquisite loft group. "Master, the news of the life nirvana pool has come." The old man in black stood respectfully in front of the white-haired boy. "What happened?" The white-haired boy asked casually. "That sword Wushuang has at least developed 70% of the innate advantage in nirvana pool of life, and his body has skyrocketed to a height of 68,000 miles. In addition, he has also awakened his talents." Chapter 41:17. The first is more. The originally very casual white-haired boy, when he heard the words of the old man in black, changed his look immediately. 68,000 miles into the god's body? How is that possible? The gray-haired boy looked incredible. You know, it is also the perfect life. When he first entered the nirvana pool of life, he also ushered in the opportunity for the gods to soar. At that time, his gods soared to the height of 9,000 miles, which is shocking enough. After all, the 6,000-mile-long giant body of Yenshan Mountain alone has envied countless practitioners and even special lives. And his 9,000 miles high body, purely in volume, has even exceeded Yenshan. Such a body is already very scary. But the 9,000-mile high body is totally different from the 68-mile high body. How is it possible? How could that sword Wushuang have such an incredible body? The white-haired boy was shocked inside. Although it's incredible, the process by which Jian Wushuang's body soared in the nirvana of life was seen by many people and could not be faked. His body really did have a height of 68,000 miles, and he still at the same time, he awakened his own supernatural powers, which made him optimistic about his Bloodwave supremacy and favored him even more. Now Bloodwave Supreme has personally taken this sword Wushuang to test the strength of the divine power. The master and you have performed the divine power test before, and the result is 7,600 times that of a normal practitioner. The performance of nirvana in the life, his innate advantage may be developed even more. If even the strength of the sword is higher than the master you, then the sword Wushuang completely surpasses the master in terms of basic potential. Then the position of the master in the temple of life will also be great. Decline. Inu solemnly said. Hearing the words of a slave, the white-haired boy's complexion was completely darkened. He is the perfect life in the entire universe, and has grown all the way from the beginning of cultivation. He is talented and dazzling. When he broke through and became the master of the rules, he was introduced to the Palace of Life, and after he arrived at the Palace of Life, he has also received the attention and expectations of many senior executives. As he walked along the road, he was too dazzling and too smooth, which led to his arrogant and even a little arrogant. There are countless special lives in the Temple of Life, and not many of them are in his eyes. However, perhaps because he grew up so smoothly, after he reached the ultimate domination, he encountered his biggest single bottleneck. He approached various methods at the ultimate dominating level and made every effort. His strength has been promoted to the extreme that he can achieve, but the result has been unable to break through to reach the supreme. Not only himself, but also the life shrine has made great efforts for his breakthrough. Various resources and various treasures were given to him free of charge. Even the life shrine gave the perfect life that has already broken through to become the supreme has personally come to point him in the hope that he can break through and become the supreme as soon as possible. However, countless resources and treasures piled up, but he still showed no signs of breaking through. Until now, dozens of times of chaos have passed, he is still the ultimate dominator and can't see any hope of breakthrough. Because of this, the senior members of the Life Shrine have basically no hope of his breakthrough, and the Supremes who had paid so much attention to him had already been disappointed in him. And his status in the Temple of Life has long been worse than before. However, before that, after all, he was still the only perfect life in the level of the Holy Palace of Life. Even if the chance of breaking the Supreme is slim in the future, only with such a chance, his status will not go low. In recent years, the white-haired boy has made little progress in strength, but the resources he deserves have never been less in the Temple of Life. In the original situation, although the white-haired teenager was very unwilling, he was still reluctant to accept it. But now, with the arrival of Jian Wushuang, everything is different. In the previous level of the Life Shrine level, he is a perfect life. Just punch this, and his treatment will not be bad. But now Jian Wushuang, the perfect life at the dominating level, is no longer the only white-haired boy, and many high-level eyes of the Palace of Life have been completely attracted by Jian Wushuang. This also made the white-haired teenager feel a huge crisis in his heart. I am in the Temple of Life, and I have not been treated by those high-ranking powerhouses. Now there is a sword unparalleled. If those high-level officials in the Temple of Life think that the potential of this sword is unparalleled, they will do their utmost to cultivate this sword unparalleled, and let alone fight for more resources. I am afraid that even the treatment that originally belonged to me will be omitted. The white-haired teenager clenched his hands. His eyes were extremely cold. The 68,000-mile-high body has awakened its own talented supernatural power. If the strength of the gods exceeds him, the sword Wushuang completely surpasses him on various foundations. Those who live in the Palace of Life will definitely not focus their energy on this perfect life, where they can hardly see the hope of breaking through, but will focus all their attention on Jian Wushuang. At that time, he would never be treated like this in the Temple of Life. I am afraid that it would be at most similar to the treatment of a creature of good quality. These are unacceptable to the white-haired boy. Anyway, I can't let the things that belong to me be lost. Jian Wushuang, you new kid, want to impact my status and treatment, dream. I will prove to those old things. I want to let them know that the sword is unparalleled, but a little guy, I am the most hopeful person in the Palace of Life to become the next supreme perfect life. The white-haired boy's eyes are full of strong man's slave. Go, let's go to him. The white-haired boy took the old man in black and slaved directly to the place where Jian Wushuang tested the strength of the divine power. Jian Wushuang has come to a temple under the personal leadership of Bloodwave Supreme. The interior of this temple is actually a huge independent space, and the entire independent space is a martial arts field. There are also a variety of instruments used for cultivation on the martial arts field. In one corner of the performance martial arts field, there is a special law formation here. Within the law formation, there is a respected battle standing there. Bloodwave Supreme came with the sword unparalleled and came to this front. C 4118, 4118 Danger. 4118 Danger. The white-haired youth, who was originally very casual, immediately changed his expression when he heard the words of the black-robed elder. Inu, 68,000 miles of divine body? How is this possible? The white-haired youth's face was filled with disbelief. One had to know that when he first entered the life nirvana pool, he also received the opportunity for his divine body to expand explosively. At that time, his divine body had expanded to a height of 9,000 miles. This was already terrifying enough. After all, Flame Mountain's huge divine body, which was 6,000 miles long, had already attracted the envy of countless cultivators and special beings. His 9,000-mile-tall divine body was even bigger than Flame Mountain's, which was already very shocking. However, compared to his 68,000-mile-tall divine body, his 9,000-mile-tall divine body was completely different. How is this possible? How could Jian Wushuang have such an incredible divine body? The white-haired youth was extremely shocked. Although it's incredible, many people have witnessed the process of Jian Wushuang's divine body growing rapidly in the life nirvana pool. It can't be faked. His divine body is indeed 68,000 miles tall. Moreover, he has also awakened his own innate divine power. This has made Ruler Bloodwave, who had been optimistic about him, even more fond of him. Now, Ruler Bloodwave has personally brought Jian Wushuang to test the strength of his divine power. Ruler, the result of your divine power test was 7,600 times that of an ordinary cultivator. It's very heaven-defying. However, based on Jian Wushuang's performance in the life nirvana pool, it's possible that his innate advantage will be further developed. If Jian Wushuang's divine power is stronger than yours, then Jian Wushuang's basic potential will completely surpass yours. In the future, Ruler's position in the Life Palace will also be greatly reduced, Inu said solemnly. Hearing Inu's words, the white-haired youth's face turned completely gloomy. He was a perfect life form that was rare in the entire universe. He had grown up from the beginning of cultivation and was extremely talented and dazzling. As soon as he broke through to become a principal ruler, he was taken to the Life Palace. After he arrived at the Life Palace, he was also valued and looked forward to by many higher-ups. He had been far too dazzling, and his journey had been far too smooth. This had caused him to feel incomparably arrogant and even a bit conceited. There were countless special life forms in the Life Palace, but not many of them were worthy of his attention. However, perhaps it was because his path of growth had been far too smooth that when he reached the level of an Omega ruler, he had encountered his greatest bottleneck. He had tried all sorts of methods to reach the Omega ruler level. He had tried everything he could, but he had been unable to break through to become a ruler. He was not the only one. The Life Palace had worked very hard to help him break through. They had given him all sorts of resources and treasures for free. In fact, the Life Palace had even sent the two perfect rulers over to give him some personal guidance, all in the hopes that he would break through to become a ruler as soon as possible. However, despite the countless resources and treasures he had accumulated, he still showed no signs of breaking through at all. Dozens of chaos cycles had passed, and he was still an Omega ruler. There was not even a hint of hope for him to make a breakthrough. Because of this, the higher-ups of the Life Palace no longer held much hope for him to make a breakthrough. The rulers who had been looking forward to his breakthrough had long since grown disappointed in him. His status within the Life Palace was no longer as high as it had been before. However, in the past, he had been the only perfect being amongst the rulers of the Life Palace. Even if his chances of breaking through to become a ruler in the future were slim, his status would not be any lower than before. Over the years, the white-haired youth's strength had not improved much, but the Life's Sacred Palace had always given him the resources he deserved. The white-haired youth was unwilling to accept this situation, but he could still accept it. But now, with Jian Wushuang's arrival, everything was different. Previously, he was the only perfect life form in the ruler level of the Life's Sacred Palace. For this reason, he was treated well. However, now that Jian Wushuang had arrived, the white-haired young man was no longer the only one. Many of the higher-ups of the Life Palace were completely attracted to Jian Wushuang. This made the white-haired young man feel a great crisis in his heart. I have already been disliked by the higher-ups in the Life Palace, and now Jian Wushuang has appeared. If the higher-ups of the Life Palace think that Jian Wushuang's potential is much greater than mine, they will do their best to cultivate Jian Wushuang. I'm afraid that even the treatment that originally belonged to me will be omitted, not to mention fighting for more resources. The white-haired young man clenched his hands, his eyes were extremely cold. His divine body was 68,000 miles tall, and he had awakened his own innate divine power. If his divine power was stronger than his, then Jian Wushuang would be above him in all aspects. The senior officials of the Life Palace would certainly not focus on him, a perfect life with little hope of making a breakthrough. Instead, they would focus all their attention on Jian Wushuang. At that time, he would never be treated like this in the Life Palace. At most, he would be treated like a creation-level life form, which was unacceptable to the white-haired young man. No matter what, I can't lose what belongs to me. Jian Wushuang, you're just a new kid. You want to challenge my status and treatment? Dream on. They'll prove it to those old guys. They'll let them know that Jian Wushuang is just a kid. I'm the one who has the best chance of becoming the next supreme-level perfect life form in the Life Palace. The white-haired young man's eyes shone with a fierce light. Nu, let's go and find him. The white-haired young man took Nu, the black-clothed elder, and flew directly toward the place where Jian Wushuang was testing his divine power. Jian Wushuang was led by ruler Blood Wave to a temple. The inside of the temple was actually a huge independent space. The entire independent space was a martial arts practice field, where there were all kinds of tools for cultivation. In one corner of the martial arts practice field, there was a special magic array with puppet fighters standing inside. Ruler Blood Wave brought Jian Wushuang to the magic array. Chapter 41:19. 13,500 times? How can that be? Even as a top-level Supreme Blood Wave Supreme, after seeing the scale value displayed on the spar in front of his eyes, he couldn't help setting off a huge wave. 13,500 times the basic divine power, which is totally impossible to the Blood Wave Supreme. We must know that even if it is perfect life and fully develops its own innate advantages, the strength of the divine power should only be about 10,000 times that of a normal practitioner. The strength of the divine power of the sword, unparalleled, obviously exceeds this level. Jian Wushuang, I ask you, when you just fought with those trenches in the French formation, did you really have no other means? Blood Wave Supreme stared, staring at Jian Wushuang. I was in accordance with your orders from predecessors, and I fought against them with my own divine power. Jian Wushuangdo. Blood Wave Supreme nodded. In fact, he knew that if Jian Wushuang had performed some mysteries or other means to increase the strength of divine power in the circle, the test results would not be displayed on the spar. Now that the test results are revealed, it is the normal divine strength of Jian Wushuang. It is equivalent to 13,500 times the strength of the ordinary practitioners, and even the Supreme of Blood has never heard of it. It's impossible. Even if it is the ultimate development of perfect life, the strength of divine power should only be 10,000 times? Blood Wave Supreme frowned, but at this moment he suddenly remembered that he had just arrived in the sword before Wushuang came to the Temple of Life, and the scene of life level examination in that purple temple. At that level of life test, Jian Wushuang not only triggered the sky's red light, but after that, there was a burst of golden light. The golden light that suddenly lit up was so confusing to everyone that even the Supreme Master of Blood and the Great Axe didn't know what was going on. However, they did not delve into this issue only when there was some change in the life test, but now after completing the divine strength test on Jian Wushuang, they can think of the golden light burst out during the previous life level test. The blood complexion immediately became dignified. During the life test, I have never heard of anyone testing a large area of golden light, and this test of the strength of the divine power has never heard of the strength of the divine power, which can reach more than 10,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. But both of them happen to the same person, don't they? With a hint of horror in Blood Wave Supreme's eyes, he had thought of a possibility. But this possibility made him feel creepy. The vast universe, recognized as the most upright life, is the perfect level of life. The birth of any perfect life is extremely difficult. Even the entire vast universe and an era may not be able to produce a perfect life. After a long period of time, perfect life is also recognized as the top of life. However, is perfect life really the ultimate in life in the universe? This question, if before, Blood Wave Supreme would definitely answer yes, but now he dare not think so. After all, the sword in front of him, in his opinion, has completely exceeded the scope of perfect life. Perhaps Jian Wushuang is still just the perfect level of life, but it is definitely very different from the perfect life he encountered before. Jiang Wushuang. The blood wave respects the new look at Xiang Wushuang, but the look is quite dignified. You listen, what happened here today, including the specific strength of life you checked out, must not let anyone else know, including your wife. Try not to let her know, you understand? I see. Jian Wushuang nodded. He can see the solemnity of the bleeding wave supreme, and he himself guesses that the entire vast universe has always been recognized, even if it is the perfect level of life, the development of his innate advantages to the extreme, the strength of the divine power is only one of the ordinary practitioners 10,000 times, but he has reached 13,500 times, which is obviously beyond the scope of perfect life. If this incident spreads out, he will not know how big a storm it will cause in the universe, but in the Temple of Life, there will definitely be a huge movement. Although he is valued by the Supreme of Blood and Supreme Axe, his strength is too weak. Once there is a big storm, he may not be able to hold it. By the way, Senior Shuebua, there is one thing. Jian Wushuang said suddenly. What's the matter? Blood Wave Supreme looked over. Although my test of the strength of the divine power, although it has been verified to be 13,500 times, the strength of the divine power caused by the ultimate development of my innate advantage to the perfect life is stronger, but I still feel it. The development of its own innate advantages has not reached the extreme, or even a lot. Jian Wushuangdo. What? Shui Bozan looked at Jian Wushuang in amazement. The strength of the divine power is 13,500 times, but Jian Wushuang's innate advantage has not been developed to the extreme? In other words, he still has the possibility to develop again, and the strength of the divine power may naturally increase again. Are you sure? Bloodwave Supreme asked solemnly. Okay. Jian Wushuang nodded. I can feel that there is still a lot of power hidden in my body, and there are 6 volumes of life magic. I only practice to the 5th volume. I feel that I just need to when the 6th volume is made, my innate advantage can be further developed. Of course, after the 6th volume is made, whether my own innate advantage has been developed to the extreme is not as clear to me. It seems that your level of life is really not as simple as the perfect life in general. He Xinghua sighed, his heart has already shaken a lot, but after all, he is a top superclass superpower, and soon he will calm down. You have already experienced the baptism of the nirvana pool of life. It is useless to go in for the second baptism, and if you want to continue to develop your innate advantage in the future, you only have the ability to make life magical. The 6th volume, or some precious treasures of life level, can only be hoped for further development. But no matter how your innate advantage is developed, I will only declare to the outside that you have developed your innate advantage to 80%, and the strength of the divine power is only about 8,000 times that of a normal practitioner. As for how to hide this secret in the future, it's up to you. Yes, said Bloodwave Supreme. I see. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. He knows that this incident is extraordinary, so he has also decided to fight against people from now on. If it is not a matter of life or death, he will only use about 8,000 times the power of ordinary practitioners. Chapter 41:20. The first is more. In fact, the power of 8,000 times that of ordinary practitioners is already terrible. Even for Jian Wushuang himself, he is the 3rd-level master, and is equivalent to 8,000 times the basic divine power of ordinary practitioners. This allows him to surpass most of the 5th-level masters in divine strength instantly, and if he used the will power given by the law of the universe again, the divine power would soar tenfold again. This makes the sword unparalleled divine power, which can be equivalent to the ultimate level of domination. A 3rd-level master, but the divine power is comparable to the ultimate master. This is incredible. And if Jian Wushuang broke out in desperation, 13,000 times the base of divine power, plus the will power given by the law of the universe, his divine power can even surpass the general ultimate master. It is estimated that there is only the ultimate master of the top level in terms of divine power. He can be stronger than him. 8,000 times the foundation of divine power is indeed sufficient. Jian Wushuang smiled. Your level of life is very special. As for the specific reason, I can't figure it out. If I have the opportunity to see the Lord Gong alone later, I will ask you for it. Xuebu said. Master Gongzhu? Jian Wushuang looked, and he knew that Xuebu was naturally the Gongzhu of the Palace of Life. The master of the palace created the life shrine in one hand, and let the life shrine dominate the depths of the universe for so many years, giving the universe many countless special lives a habitat, such as super-existence. Jian Wushuang is also extremely admirable. There is no doubt that the strength of this master of the palace is certainly shocking, enough to shock the vast universe. Master Gongzhu is a super-existence standing at the top of the entire universe. On the status, he can be on an equal footing with the super beings such as the Master of Diwu Temple and the Master of the Nine Emperor Pavilion. He knows a lot about special life, and maybe he will know why your divine strength has reached 13,500 times. Xuebu said. Jian Wushuang nodded slightly. At this time, someone is here. Bloodwave's gaze was abrupt, and a big wave of his hand, the light and the scale value from the transparent spar in front of him disappeared instantly. Jian Wushuang looked up at the void ahead, where two figures were galloping. Two figures appeared one after another in front of Jian Wushuang and Xuanbo Supreme. Have seen Bloodwave Supreme. The white-haired young man headed by the face, humble salutes to Bloodwave Supreme. As for the black-haired old man behind the white-haired boy, he is also saluting and more respectful. 9 calamities? Bloodwave Supreme looked dull and glanced at the white-haired boy. Are you here? Is there anything wrong? Back to Supreme, I heard that a perfect life in the palace came against the sky. In the nirvana of life just now, the divine power soared to 68,000 miles. I felt a little incredible, so I came to know it. If I'm not mistaken, this one next to Bloodwave Supreme should be the sword Unparalleled? The white-haired boy's gaze was already fixed on the sword Unparalleled. Wu Jinshuang also looked at the white-haired boy, their eyes staring at each other. The sword is calm without two sides, but it is dark inside. Simple eyes twitched, but he saw a hint of hostility deep in the eyes of the white-haired boy. Although this kind of hostility is hidden, Jian Wushuang still felt it. Obviously, the visitor is bad. Jiojia, are you really just coming to know Jian Wushuang? Bloodwave Supreme looked at the white-haired boy with interest, but then sneered, looking at this seat, you think that Jian Wushuang has too much potential big, too dazzling, it will cover your edge, worrying that his appearance will make you lose your precarious position and treatment in the palace, right? The smile on the face of the boy with white hair suddenly froze. He really did find it because Jian Wushuang made him feel a great sense of crisis, worried about his status and treatment. Although he thought so, he was still very humble and kind, but unexpectedly, Bloodwave Supreme broke the matter as soon as he opened his mouth. Status and treatment? Jian Wushuang frowned, wondering. At this time, Bloodwave Supreme chuckled. Jian Wushuang, the person in front of you is the king of 9 calamities. Before you, he was the only perfect life in the level in the Palace of Life. For a long time, my life shrine also gave him a lot of ideas for this, and it took a lot of resources and costs, but he has not yet been able to break through. In the life shrine, many high-level officials have already give up. The words of Sun Zuibo's Supreme have not been completely spoken, but only by hearing this, Jian Wushuang has fully understood. The perfect life that has been almost abandoned by many high-level palaces of life. His status in the life palace is estimated to be much worse than before, and at this time my perfect life, which also dominates the level, appeared, and these 9 kings of nature naturally he would regard me as a threat, thinking that I would have a great impact on his current status and treatment, so he was hostile to me. Jian Wushuang knew it. To put it bluntly, it is the struggle between status and treatment. If he did not appear, even though the 9 kings could not break through the Supreme, but after all, it is the only perfect life in the Palace of Life, the status and treatment will not be worse. As soon as he appeared, the 9 kings are no longer the only one, and his status and treatment will naturally be greatly affected. The king of Zhejiao will be hostile to him, it is also normal, but all this can't blame Jian Wushuang. To blame, he can only blame King Zhejiao himself for not fighting and being unable to break the Supreme. Although the origin of the 9 kings of the calamity has been named by the Blood Wave Supreme, Jian Wushuang also has a heart like a mirror, but the king of the 9 waves also smiles on his face. Blood Wave Supreme has misunderstood, and a new perfect life is born in the Palace of Life. And the potential is still so great, I'm glad I haven't had enough time to worry about him. What are you doing now? Shui Bo Supreme asked casually. I'm here just to get to know Jian Jianshuang, and it's rare to see a perfect level of life, which happens to be the dominant level. If I have the opportunity, I naturally want to communicate with him at the trial ground. The king of robber laughed. Trial field? Jian Wushuang doubted. Sure enough. Supreme Bloodwave was not surprised at all. He explained. The sword is unparalleled, the trial ground is a special space in the life shrine, and the practitioners in my life shrine are specially used to compete. The place where the fighting is different from the ordinary battlefield is that the 2 sides in the trial field are both simulated gods based on the battlefields themselves, so there is no need to worry about the damage of the body. Chapter 41-21. 2 more arrived today. Is that so? Jian Wushuang knew immediately. The 9 kings of the calamity said that they wanted to communicate with me in the trial ground. In fact, they wanted to fight me directly. As for his purpose, it is estimated to be like life prove yourself at the top of the shrine. You're right. Bloodwave Supreme looked over. As far as I know, King 9 Calamities has not broken through to become a supreme in recent years, but with the accumulation of various precious resources and treasures, his progress is also very great. He has reached a very high level of understanding of the laws of the universe. If he judges by the sea of universally recognized laws, he should already have the strength to cross the 4th layer of the law. In addition, he is a perfect life, and his innate advantage has also been developed by 70%. The strength of the divine power is more than 7,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. All these add up to the fact that his strength is dominated by the sky. Although it is almost impossible to see someone in the universe who can rival the Supreme at the level of domination, but according to my estimation, if the 9 kings of the king really fight against everything, their combat power should not be weaker than those of the most ordinary Supreme. How much? Oh! Jian Wushuang frowned. Dominant level is comparable to Supreme. This is indeed incredible in the universe. Wu Jianwushuang had heard the Supreme Master said before that the Ultimate Master can be compared to the Supreme, and tens of thousands of Chaos Ages could barely meet one, which is definitely the most anti-genius in the universe. Wu Jianshou played against Supreme, knowing that the gap between Supreme and Ultimate Master is completely insurmountable, so he also very much agreed with the statement of Supreme Master. At that time, the Supreme Master also said that if he would become the Ultimate Master in the future, he hopes to be comparable to the Supreme. At that time, he himself felt incredible. But now, after coming to the Temple of Life, after the baptism of life, he didn't feel that way. After all, his current strength is 13,500 times that of a normal practitioner. Compared to the Ultimate Master, the Supreme Power is estimated to be about 10,000 times stronger than the Ultimate Master. I am afraid that it is less than 13,500 times. Once he breaks through and reaches the ultimate level, depending on his own level of life, his divine power is not inferior to any one Supreme. Only the divine power is not bad. Naturally, he can easily rival the Supreme. And the King of 9 Calamities is also a perfect life. Although the strength of the divine power is only 7,000 times that of a normal practitioner, he has already broken through and become the Ultimate Master, and the Temple of Life has spent so many resources and treasures on him. His divine power, of course, is extremely tyrannical, and it is not impossible to match the supremacy of the universe with his 4th-level cosmic law. The 9 kings of the 9 kings, because of you, feel that their status and treatment will be affected, so he can't wait to come to you to fight, just to defeat you, to prove himself, to tell the senior people in the palace, at least you now it's not as good as him. This can also temporarily maintain his position. With your potential, as long as you give enough time to surpass him, it should be easy. He knows that he may not be your opponent in the future. Fight with you. Bloodwave Supreme laughed. These 9 robbers are the ultimate masters, and their fighting power is enough to rival the Supreme. Come to fight with me? Jian Wushuang felt angry and funny. Whatever he said, he was only dominated by the 3rd grade. Even after his life was baptized and his strength was leaped, it would not be stupid to think that he could now compete with the 9 kings. Rest assured, since he came to you on your own initiative and said it was communication, it would not be possible to bully you. If you agreed to fight with him and wait in the trial ground, his cohesive body should only maintain the 3rd level the master's cultivation is. Bloodwave Supreme said, "Oh, the same practice?" Jian Wushuang looked. "It's just the state of cultivation. As for other means, such as the perception of the laws of the universe, mysteries and tricks, including the strength of your divine powers and talents, you can be fully exerted." Bloodwave Supreme laughed. "That is to say, except the realm is the same as yours, nothing else has changed. Jian Wushuang, you can think about it and see if you want to play against him. If you do and want to, you can directly refuse, he can't force you." Rejected. Jian Wushuang smiled. "The 9 kings of the calamity have come to the door, and they obviously want to prove me. If I refuse at this time, do I not admit that I am better than him?" "Oh, so you plan to accept?" Xie Bozhen looked at Jian Wushuang with interest. And Jian Wushuang nodded slowly. Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme have been talking, and in the middle of the conversation, Bloodwave Supreme has shielded the surrounding time and space. Although the 9 kings of the king stood in front of Jianwu, they also know that Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme are talking but did not know what Jian Wushuang and Bloodwave Supreme said. He didn't bother to say anything, but waited calmly for Jian Wushuang to talk to Bloodwave Supreme. At last, Jian Wushuang looked up and looked at the king of Jiujia again. "King of 9 calamities, are you looking for me, really just for communication?" Jian Wushuang stared at King of 9 calamities. "Of course." Zhijiawang smiled very mildly. "Well, this battle, I took it, but I just finished my life baptism, and I'm not completely familiar with the changes of my body, so you have to give me a little time, so let us, after 10 days, you and I will fight again, how?" Jian Wushuang smiled. "No problem." King Jiujia nodded. "That's it, 10 days later I'm waiting for you in the testing room, I hope you don't let me wait more." "Rest assured, 10 days later, I will definitely arrive at the trial ground." Jian Wushuang smiled. King Jiujia's complexion was still dull, but there was an imperceptible flash of light in the depths of his eyes. He still respectfully saluted the supreme blood, and then turned and left. After King Jiuzai left, Jian Wushuang, just familiar with the changes of the divine body, it should not take 10 days so long? Bloodwave Supreme looked at Jian Wushuang with a smile. "Sure enough, I can't hide the seniors, I really can't hide it. I still have some other gains in the nirvana of life this time." Jian Wushuang smiled. The other gains in his mouth were naturally the 2 great talents of his awakening. These 2 talents are supernatural. He hasn't studied it well, so it will take some time. In addition, since you have to fight with the 9 kings of calamity, you must know yourself and others, but I don't know anything about the 9 kings of calamity other than those you just told me. Jian Wushuang looked at Bloodwave Supreme. "It's easy, I'll have someone send you the details of the 9 kings of calamity right away." Bloodwave Supreme said. "Thank you, Shuebwa Senior." Jian Wushuang was glad inside. Chapter 41-22. 10 days elapsed. In a loft in the 6th mountain, Jian Wushuang slowly opened his eyes, and a magnificent coercion exploded with him as the center, and then he immediately closed his body. "In 10 days I was able to completely control my divine power." Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. After the baptism of nirvana in life, not only his divine body skyrocketed by 68,000 miles, but his divine strength also skyrocketed. More than 13,000 times, even if it is him, in the face of this leaping power, it is a bit uncontrollable for the first time. Until now, it took him a full 10 days to perfectly control the strength of his divine power, suppressing it to about 8,000 times. The gain from this trip into nirvana of life is really too great, and my strength has increased too much compared to before. Jian Wushuang whispered to himself, and there was an irrepressible exclamation on his face. In these 10 days, not only did he completely control the skyrocketing power, but he also knew well about his 2 talents. He believes that with these 2 talents, even if facing the Supreme, he is somewhat self-protective. Of course, it just depends on talents to protect themselves. It's time to go on an appointment. There was a flash of coldness in Jian Wu's eyes. The king of Zhejiang wanted to step on him to prove his strength. In the middle of this, he was pregnant. He could use the hand of King Zhejiang to see how powerful he was after the baptism. To the point. The next moment, Jian Wu's figure flickered and disappeared into the attic instantly. Fu Jun, outside the loft, cold as frost and Supreme Blood Wave were already waiting there. Shuang. Jian Wushuang glanced at his wife. After he returned 10 days ago, he had explained to Leng Rushuang his covenant with the 9 kings. But it's just a battle in the proving ground, not a battle of life and death. Naturally, the coldness will not worry. Predecessor of Blood Wave. Jian Wushuang salutes Blood Wave Supreme again. 10 days have come, how are you going? Shuebu Supreme asked with a smile. Okay. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. You should read the data of the 9 kings of calamity, and be at war with him, can you be sure? He Xinghua asked again. The description of his strength in this material is almost before the 20 chaos ages, and in these 20 chaos eras, the 9 kings of the calamity have hardly ever shot, and his strength is within these 20 chaos eras. How much has been improved, I don't know. If it was him before the 20 chaos period, I would have a 10% certainty to win against him. But if there is a big breakthrough in his strength in these 20 chaotic eras, then I have no certainty of victory. Jian Wushuang laughed. There is no certainty to win, then it is said that there is more or less certainty to win? Xie Bozhen looked at Jian Wushuang with an interest. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly. It is true that the 9 kings may be very strong, but Jian Wushuang also has absolute confidence in his own strength. In the trial ground, the 2 maintained the same realm, and both were 3rd-level dominated levels. In terms of strength, he was definitely stronger than Zhejiang. On the perception of the laws of the universe, he had the strength to break through the 5th layer of the rule of seas long ago, and later studied the secret of the Zixue. After reaching the 1st realm, he was very close to the 6th layer of the rule of seas. At the same time, he also awakened 2 great talents at the same time, plus the primitive universe given by the law of the universe, that is 3 great talents. And the law of the universe also gave him a powerful willpower. All these things add up. In the same level, looking at the universe, he really doesn't believe that someone can be his opponent. Even if the 9 kings themselves are the ultimate masters, he has no fear at all. Even if Jiao Jiawang has made a great breakthrough in these 20 chaos eras, Jian Wushuang still has more than 90% confidence and can defeat him positively. Look at your smile, it seems that the winning ticket is in the hands. Supreme Xiebo also laughed. Okay, come with me, don't let them wait too long. They. Jian Wushuang looked. He, the king of the 9 dragons has long been spreading the message of fighting with you. Now many people in the Palace of Life already know that you and him are on the trial ground today. The battle of 2 perfect lives, it attracts many people naturally. As far as I know, there are many ancient existences in the palace, and they are very concerned about your battle. So, you have to perform well in this battle, but don't let the 9 robbers steal the limelight. Bloodwave Supreme laughed. So it is. Jian Wushuang knew it and then laughed. Since there are so many people who will pay attention to this battle, I will not let them down. Immediately, Jian Wushuang went to the trial ground under the personal leadership of Bloodwave Supreme. An ancient Cyan temple stands alone in a corner of the Temple of Life. This blue temple is where the trial ground of the Temple of Life is located. This Cyan temple is not large in appearance, but in fact, the trial space contained in it is vast and vast, let alone dominate, even the two supreme strong men can completely complete the trial space. Let go of your hands and feet. Of course, regardless of whether they are the master or the supreme, they enter the trial ground, and they are only the gods with consciousness. As for their deities, they are still left outside. At this moment, around the Blue Temple, there were already crowded people. They were standing in the void, their breath was revealed, and they kept discussing in a low voice. Have you heard of that? The sword is unparalleled. In Nirvana, the body of God has skyrocketed to 68,000 miles. The record set is the highest in the history of our life shrine. 60,000 miles into the body, it is said that he has also awakened the talented supernatural powers. The sword is unparalleled indeed. I even dare to say that once he breaks through the supreme realm, he will surely become another pillar of heaven in my palace of life. It's just, he's still a little too young and too arrogant, and dare to agree to the king's promised battle. He really can't recognize himself. Sword unparalleled, really reckless. Many people shook their heads while talking, lamenting the high talent of Jian Wushuang, and expressed their incomprehension and irrationality about the battle between Jian Wushuang and the king of Jiujia. They don't know much about Jian Wushuang. They only know that Jian Wushuang is the perfect life, and the deities in the nirvana of life have skyrocketed to 68,000 miles. They have also awakened the talented supernatural powers, but others don't know. After all, Jian Wushuang has just reached the depths of the universe and has no reputation in the universe. Chapter 41-23. Two more arrived today. Admittedly, even if Jian Wushuang once defeated the ultimate dominator with the third level, it was still in the Jiuyao starfield, and the disaster of the Jiuyao starfield was almost completely destroyed. Naturally, no one knew his specific strength is out. No one even knows how high he feels about the laws of the universe. But the 9 kings are different. These people who have stayed in the Temple of Life for a long time know more about the strength of King Jiujia. Once upon a time, it was the first genius recognized by the Palace of Life, and at the level of dominance, it also received countless resources and benefits from the Palace of Life. He has also spent dozens of chaos in the ultimate domination. And his strength revealed before the 20 chaos times alone is extremely scary. In these 20 chaos times, he has rarely shot, and his strength and whole cards have already reached the point where no one can see. No one knows how far he has grown in strength in this more than 20 chaos era that has not broken through. I can say that King 9 is the vast universe, the uncrowned king who dominates the realm. First person in the universe. They really can't think of it. They have practiced Jian Wushuang for more than 300,000 years, and what to use to fight the king of Jiokai. Is it because the two are in the same state in the trial ground? I still say that because this sword is unparalleled, the power of the will be higher than that of Jujin King? Even if this is the case, he is not the opponent of King Jiucai, right? At this moment, the Supreme Master of Blood Wave led to see countless others and came to the Blue Temple. Jian Wushuang. This temple is where the trial is. The 9 disasters don't seem to have come yet. You are here now, etc. Shui Bo Supreme ordered. Jian Wushuang nodded. Suddenly, Blood Wave Supreme has swept away to a void beside. With the sword Wushuang coming, there was a commotion in the surrounding void. He is the sword unparalleled? Does it look average? Sure enough, it is only the 3rd grade that dominates the level, and the practice has not been more than 300,000 years, too young. 300,000 years of cultivation, such achievements can be achieved, which is very bad. Some of the strong men who came to watch the battle laughed. At the same time, in the void on the other side of the Blue Temple, there are still 3 supreme powerful men who have enough breath to crush eternity. Blood Wave, that sword Wushuang is really in the nirvana of life. The body has skyrocketed to 68,000 miles? An old man with white hair and white eyebrows, wearing a black robe and full of decay, asked indifferently. Extreme Gav, this is absolutely true. Bloodwave Extreme was slightly behind the old man, nodding and nodded. That's the case, that's a bit interesting. The old man raised his eyelids, and there were no waves in the muddy eyes, neither salty nor indifferent. This person is the strongest of the 5 chief supremes of the Temple of Life, gave. The years of his practice have been so long that they cannot be recorded in the chaos period. The chief supreme leaders, such as Bloodwave and Giant Axe, can only claim to be juniors in front of him. I can say that the status of the entire Palace of Life is second only to that mysterious Palace Master. This is not the most critical thing. The key is that the King of Jiulong was the life temple he brought from a remote astral world. I did not expect that the battle between Zhujiawang and Jian Wushuang led him all out. Blood, you shouldn't let sword warriors fight. The King of 9 Calamities has practiced dozens of chaos disciplines, and sword warriors has not cultivated enough for 300,000 years. The information is too bad. If this sword warriors loses, maybe it will cause some blows to him, which is not conducive to his future development. The Great Axe in the 3 supreme figures frowned and said, "Big Axe, you are too underestimated of this little guy. When I just picked him up, he was full of confidence in this battle." Bloodwave Supreme smiled mysteriously. "It's a good thing to have confidence, but blind self-confidence is arrogance." Gav said supremely, "Although I am very optimistic about this little guy, I think that if he grows up in the future, he should be stronger than the King of 9 Calamities, but that is also after he grew up, but now. I really do know. I have only cultivated for 300,000 years. How to defeat the King of 9 Calamities." Extreme Axe shook his head. Let's wait and see." Shuebo smiled brightly and didn't say more. Time passed slowly. Not long after Jian Wushuang arrived at the trial ground, a black-haired, indifferent white-haired boy Jiujiawang also came to the trial ground. "Jian Wushuang, you came quite fast." King Jiujia looked at Jian Wushuang with a playful smile on his face. "It's too slow for you to come." Jian Wushuang gave a cold glance at King Jiujia. "You should already know the rules of the trial ground. You and I are just consciously entering into it. The trial ground will fight according to our own new body, but considering that you are only the 3rd level master, I will not bully the small. The body I condensed in the trial field will only be the 3rd level to dominate the level." Jian Wushuang nodded. "No one was surprised around me. The King of 9 Emperors must be in a low state in the trial ground, which is a certainty and a must. After all, if he went to the trial field with his peak strength, then this match would be completely meaningless. No matter how invincible Sword Jian Wushuang is, it is impossible to defeat the opponent who has reached the top of the ultimate domination, and the strength of his magic power is more than 7,000 times that of a perfect practitioner. Only the divine power will not be a grade. The divine power of the 9 Calamity Kings is barely comparable to the Supreme. Are you and I going directly to the trial ground?" Jian Wushuang looked at the King of Jiujia. "No rush. Before we enter the trial ground, let's discuss it." King Jiujia suddenly laughed. "What to discuss?" Jian Wushuang asked. "You and I are perfect lives, and this exchange has attracted so many strong people in the palace to come and watch. If this battle ends so simple, it would be too boring. Let's add some highlights?" Jiujiawang laughed. "Colorful head?" Jian Wushuang frowned, but his heart laughed. "The 9 kings of the calamity are really dead. I want to suppress him through this battle, so that he is too high in his status, and now he still wants to win? He wants to earn more from himself? What color head do you want?" Jian Wushuang asked. "I heard that when you first arrived in the palace, you met the Great Axe Supreme, and the Great Axe Supreme gave you a godfruit of the rule of Chinese goods." King Jiujia smiled lightly. Qi Jian's eyes flickered. Those who watched the battle around were surprised. Standing aside in the void, among the 3 towering figures standing there, the Great Axe's complexion was slightly gloomy. Chapter 41-24. These 9 calamities are really a good abacus. In the void, there was an anger flash on the face of the Great Axe Supreme, the goddess of Zhongping rule, but he gave Jian Wushuang a meeting ceremony with his own hands, and these 9 calamities dared to hit his idea to the meeting ceremony. The next moment, He was about to speak out and personally refuse this request for Jian Wushuang, and saw the Supreme Gav standing next to him, glanced at him, and said indifferently, "Big Axe, this trial is among their juniors. What would it look like if you stepped in?" When the giant axe heard that his pupils shrank, he remembered that the King of Nine Calamities was the next to the Supreme Lord Gap, who had personally led him back that year. Although King Nine Calamities did not break through the Supreme Realm in recent years, all high-level palaces of life, including Gefusen, were disappointed in him, but if they were to forcibly intervene in this trial at this moment, it would be easy to get off the mark. The giant axe groaned for a moment, preparing to speak, but saw the blood wave next to him shaking his head slightly. Why not? He gave a sigh and stopped speaking. Instead he looked at Jian Wushuang outside the trial ground, so he had to hope in Jian Wushuang, and he would not agree to the request of King Jiujia. Xian Temple, outside the trial ground. Jian Wushuang, this trial and study, if you lose, you will give me the Chinese rule of God that the axe is supreme to you. The King of Nine Kings looked at Jian Wushuang with his hands, and his skin was smiling. Said with a smile. As soon as the words came to an end, there was a commotion among the crowds watching the scene. The fierce king of the Ninth Calamity, even when he said it, he wanted the axe supreme to give Jian Wushuang the magical rule of Zhongpin. Well, the King of Nine Calamities has long coveted the fruit of that Chinese rule. Ah, I see, this trial is false. Suppressing the sword is unparalleled, and it is true to get the god fruit. Look at Jian Wushuang now, will you agree? He stared at each other and fell on Jian Wushuang, waiting for his decision. Jian Jianhui's eyes narrowed, and he didn't rush to promise the King of Jiujia, but asked instead, if King of Jiujia lose, what is Kaitu? I lost. Wang Jiujia laughed, then turned over with his right hand, took out 2 red fruits, and said, if I lose, not only the 2 good quality rules god fruits for you, I will additionally give you 200,000 source stones. Counting it, it's worth more than your god of goods. How about it? Jian Wushuang nodded his head. Indeed, if the value is single, the 2 sublime rules of the fruit, plus the 200,000 source stone, are indeed similar to his middle-class rule of fruit. Next moment. I promised. Jian Wushuang said lightly. Ha ha, sword unparalleled, you really do not let this seat down. Jiujia Wang heard the words, and suddenly sent a vague joy in his eyes. Among the crowd watching the battle, with the words, I promised, by Jian Wushuang, there was an uproar. Stupid. The intention of Jiujia Wang to deceive his of goodness is already so obvious that Wu Shou shouldn't see it, but he knows this and even promised to fight? Can he really think he will win? Over the 9 kings? This sword is unparalleled, maybe the talent is really good, but after all, the practice is too short and too proud. The spectators in the crowd shook their heads, sighed, or mocked. And in the mysterious void where the 3 supremes stand. Arrogant. Seeing Jian Wushuang agreeing to the King of the Ninth Calamity, the axe of the Great Axe snorted, and said secretly in his heart, little guy, if you lose that of goodness rule, see where you cry. Jian Wushuang, let's get started. The King of Jiujia seemed to be afraid of the sword Wu Shou repenting. After that, he immediately pressed his palm on a statue outside the trial ground. This statue is the opening channel of the trial ground. It is a precious anomaly. It can perfectly copy all the divine power and will power of the trial object. It is condensed into a body in the trial ground, ensuring that the 2 can be in the trial ground. The same realm. It is good. Jian Wushuang nodded and did not hesitate to press his hand on the statue in front of him. There was a flash of golden light, and I saw a crack in the void of this blue temple. Next moment, the respective consciousnesses of Jian Wushuang and Jiujia Wang blasted towards this crack. In the puppet trial ground, there is a starry sky. I saw that the body of King Jiolong was first condensed, and he stepped in the void, and his spirit was surging. Subsequently, Jian Wushuang's deity was also condensed, and a sharp sword surged into the sky. Jian Wushuang, in the 3rd dominating level with you now, don't say I bully you. Jiujia Wang smiled coldly and didn't want to say more. The strength of the divine power in the body suddenly broke out, and he took the first shot at Jian Wushuang Kum. This palm is composed of divine power, and the immense divine power almost collapses the void. Want to test the strength of my divine power? Jian Wushuang smiled indifferently, followed and pointed into a sword, cut out a sword mang composed of divine power, and shot directly at the palm of Jiujia Wang. Rumble! There was a burst of loud noise. The two kings of Jiujia and Jian Wushuang did not give out their full strength at the beginning, neither sword Wushuang did not take out their own magic sword, just referring to the strength into a sword. It is obviously to compete in the strength of divine power. In terms of divine strength, both of them are perfect lives, and the innate advantages of development are at least 70%. This collision, the horror of mighty power burst out instantly, and immediately followed the majestic power of King Nine Calamity, like the rising and falling tide of the sea, sweeping toward the sword in incomparable waves. The sword Wushuang, facing this surging endless divine power, is like a flat boat in the sea of anger. No matter how divine the power of the Nine Calamity King, although he looks thrilling, he is not move. Sword unparalleled, can you only defend? The King of Nine Emperors laughed. The violent divine power was like a violent storm, and he slammed against the sword Wushuang once and again. With each slap, the intensity of the divine power was even greater than the previous one. King of Calamity, if you want to test my strength, then I will fulfill you. Jian Wushuang heard the words and wasted no time. His eyes flashed, and he no longer hesitated. The majestic power of his body also began to explode. With a big wave of his sword, Wushuang, a shocking sword rainbow, chopped down towards the king of Jiujia. 8,000 times the strength of the divine power suddenly broke out. This sword was split and directly defeated all the offensives of King Jiujia, and even the figure of King Jiujia could not help but step back a few steps. After this retreat, the gap in the strength of the divine power of the two sides was immediately reflected. Okay. The King Jiujia regained his body shape, but his face was sinking, and there was a shock in his eyes. This boy's strength has reached 8,000 times, even stronger than me? Chapter 41-25. The first is more. While Jian Wushuang and Jiujia Wang confronted each other, a huge turquoise black mirror appeared on the blue temple outside the trial ground, and the convex mirror surface put the Jiujia Wang and Jian Wushuang in the trial area. The pictures of the competition were all taken care of. The power of these two people is so scary. After all, they are perfect lives. King Jiujia has developed more than 70% of his innate advantages long ago. The strength of the divine power is estimated to be about 7,500 times that of ordinary practitioners. The King of Robbers is stronger? This sword is unparalleled in strength. I am afraid that it is 8,000 times that of an ordinary practitioner. The strength of the divine power is 8,000 times that of ordinary practitioners. It is really terrible. Looking at the battle pictures uploaded by Shuangguang Mirror, countless people secretly marveled, but also not reached the point of dazzling. After all, Jian Wushuang can awaken talents. The development of his innate advantages must also be more than 70%, and the minimum is 70%. Now he has developed 80%, and it has an outbreak of 8,000 times the strength of the divine power. In the empty space around the puppet, three people, the Supreme, the Great Blood Wave, and the Great Axe, stood. Although there are still other Supremes present, those Supremes are not eligible to be tied with these three. The strength of this sword's unparalleled magic power is not weak. Gafu Supreme said indifferently. The Blood Wave Supreme next to the cricket smiled secretly. He knows that the sword has a double bottom, but that is 13,500 times the strength of the divine power, and more than 7,500 times the strength of the divine power. What did the sword do before it was double-sided? Even if Jian Wushuang only uses 8,000 times the magic power of ordinary practitioners, it is enough to crush the king of Jiujia. Seeing this, he also nodded, but said quietly, although the strength of the divine power is higher than that of Jiujin Wang, in other respects, it may not be comparable to Jiujin Wang. It is too early to be happy. Let's watch then. Xie Bushuan laughed heartily. Among the three, the eyes of the Supreme and the Great Axe have some special looks in their eyes, except that the Supreme looked at Jian Wushuang expressionlessly from the beginning to the end, and there were no emotions in the turbid eyes. The fluctuations did not see what he was thinking. Inside the trial ground. The battle continues. My own innate advantage has been developed to 80%, which is equivalent to 8,000 times the strength of the ordinary practitioners. The sword is unparalleled. If I only say that in terms of the strength of the gods, I am really inferior to you. The king of Jojia smiled, not because of the strength of his own gods. The sword is unparalleled, and there is a change in mood. You know, in his prediction, Jian Wushuang's divine power is at least equivalent to him, but now it is only slightly stronger than him, and he can accept it. He admits that he is not as good as Jian Wushuang in terms of divine strength, which is nothing to him. After all, in the universe, the strength of divine power is not everything, especially Jian Wushuang's divine power is not much stronger than him. Under the condition that the difference in divine strength is not too big, the King of Nine Calamities can completely rely on the absolute learning, rely on various techniques to fill these gaps, and defeat Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang, I heard, you feel a bit of the law of the universe? King Jojia looked at Jian Wushuang. What is it? The sword was indifferent. It's a coincidence that I also realized some of the laws of the universe. I just don't know. Who will be more aware of the laws of the universe? Jojia Wang smiled lightly and followed the steps, and his body suddenly looked like a shell. The laser shot out, his hands quickly crossed his seal, and appeared in the sky above Jian Wushuang instantly, suppressing down towards Jian Wushuang. The speed of the Nine Kings is so fast that the law of the universe between the palms of the hands is extremely strong and heart-wrenching. The first calamity, the seal of great destruction. The King of Nine Calamities whispered. Rumble. The horrible power condensed on Jian Wushuang's head instantly. This mighty power directly formed a huge sky-shaped handprint, which was crushed down by the mighty and merciless. This huge handprint is not only powerful, but the most important is the power of the cosmic law contained in the handprint. The power of this cosmic law is extremely strong. Jian Wushuang also realized the laws of the universe, and his ability to sense the laws of the universe was extremely strong. The moment he saw the Nine Kings launching his huge palm print, he had already roughly judged the Nine Kings of the universe level of perception. Informationally, it is said that these Nine Kings' perceptions of the laws of the universe can already penetrate the fourth layer of the Sea of Laws. The fifth floor is not far away. Jian Wushuang squinted his eyes and nodded secretly. One master, the perception of the laws of the universe reaches the extreme level of the fourth level of the Law Sea, which is close to the fifth level of the Law Sea. This is already very bad. Based on these cosmic laws alone, Jiu is enough to look down on the universe. No wonder he has such great confidence that he can definitely defeat Jian Wushuang. There are also many strong men in the Palace of Life. They also believe that King Jojia is definitely better than Jian Wushuang. Even if he maintains the same state, King Jojia is even stronger, because King Jojia's understanding of the laws of the universe is too high. Looking back at Jian Wushuang. Although Jian Wushuang himself said that he felt a trace of the law of the universe, most people think that he really just realized a trace of it, and it is already very amazing to be able to step into the threshold of the law of the universe. After all, Jian Wushuang's practice time is too short, only about 300,000 years. In such a short period of time, he is only the third-level master, and where can he get a sense of the laws of the universe? But it's clear that everyone is contemptuous, including the King of Nine Calamities. Wu Jianshou drew his sword out of the sheath in an instant, and a smile swayed from the corner of his mouth. Break it open. Bland's words fell down the sword of Wu, crying Excalibur on the hands without sword. Time was covered by the violent laws of the universe. Howl. A sword mang was sung out by the sword unparalleled, seemingly a random sword, under the blessing of the law of the universe, but this sword with a sharp breath of incomparable horror, was instantly chopped over the huge crushed down above the palm print. Huh! The two collided, and the two cosmic laws were intertwined. I saw Jian Wushuang, a sword that was so radiant, and so many swords were soaring. It was very easy to break the King of Nine Calamities' great destruction seal. This sword, although Jian Wushuang did not perform too strong a peerless, but under the blessing of the laws of the universe, it is still much more powerful and subtle than the King of the Great Destruction of Nine Calamities. The crushing of this sword is easier than the crushing of the magic power of Jiujia Wang by Jian Wushuang. Strong and weak, you can see the level at a glance. Chapter 41-26. Second more. How can it? King Jiujia collapsed, looking at Jian Wushuang in amazement. He had previously competed with Jian Wushuang's divine strength. He was not Jian Wushuang's opponent. He had nothing to say. After all, his mental strength was well prepared. But now, I have no reservations. I tried my best to use the power of the law of the universe, and I was still using one of my tricks to destroy the seal of seal, but it was directly defeated by his understatement. Jiujia Wang was shocked. The law of the universe, the law of the universe. This boy, his perception of the laws of the universe is very high. Jiujia Wang stared at Jian Wushuang. At the moment of the fight, he felt that the sword skill of Jian Wushuang was actually not very strong. At least it was much worse than the mark of destruction he had cast, but it collided, but his mark of destruction was directly defeated. He created all this, not only because the sword Wushan's divine power was stronger than him. The most important thing was that the law of the universe in which swordsmanship was incorporated was too deep. In other words, Jian Wushuang's perception of the laws of the universe is even higher than him, and still much higher. But why is this happening? In the competition of divine strength, he can still accept the loss. After all, this is a congenital condition. He could compete against the law of the universe. Why did he lose? Why would you lose? This is his enlightenment for dozens of chaos times. The sword Wushuang in front of me was only practiced for more than 300,000 years. He was outside the Blue Temple. How can it be? This sword is unparalleled. Even one sword defeated the seal of destruction that Jiujia Wang exerted with all his strength. King Jiujia, but the power of the law of the universe has been fully urged. Can it be said that this sword Wushuang's perception of the laws of the universe is higher than that of King Jiujia? It's definitely higher than King Jiucai, no accident. This sword Wushuang should already be able to cross the 5th floor of the Law Sea. As for whether it can cross the 6th floor, then I don't know. Numerous people looked at the picture from the mysterious light realm and marveled at it. One has practiced dozens of chaos disciplines, while the other has only practiced more than 300,000 years, and both are extremely talented. Can it turn out that the genius who has practiced for more than 300,000 years is higher in the perception of the laws of the universe than the genius who has practiced dozens of chaos ages? The key is, how did he understand the laws of the universe to such an extent in just over 300,000 years? Everyone is full of doubts and puzzles. They didn't understand how Jian Wushuang achieved the level of understanding of the laws of the universe in such a short period of time. But in fact, they all understood it wrong. Most of them think that Jian Wushuang is the rule of the universe that is understood at the level of domination, but in fact Jian Wushuang has realized a little of the law of the universe during the rule of the rule. It is a super genius that is rare in the vast universe. This kind of super genius, in terms of rareness, is not even worse than perfect life. The master level of the rules can comprehend a rule of the universe. After mastering, the speed of comprehension is far faster than others, and the most important thing is that Jian Wushuang himself has gained great opportunities. He not only seized a third-level astral plane, he controlled the heavenly will of that astral realm, and was always affected by the will of that day. It is much easier to understand than other people. At the beginning of the crisis in the divine realm, he also swallowed a treasure of the Ling Ling. In the state of epiphany, he received the guidance of the Lord Lingyun. That was the guidance of a full 100 years. In that 100 years, the sword Wushuang's gains are so great that it makes it much easier for him to comprehend the laws of the universe. Over the years, his awareness of the laws of the universe has continued to improve. When he first went to the Sea of Laws, he had already crossed the 4th floor, and in fact, he already had the ability to cross the 5th floor. Intentionally obstruct it. Later, Lord Xiao Xiao got the purple blood secret code given by Lord Xiao Xiao. The perfect combination of the use of the laws of the universe and kendo can be said to be increasing day by day, and it is increasing every day. It has already reached an incomparable horror levels. 100,000 years ago, when Jian Wushuang reached the first realm of Zixu's secret code, he could easily cross the 5th layer of the Sea of Laws. As of now, he still has a lot of progress on the laws of the universe. The secret code is 2nd, and he has begun to enlighten. Even today, even Jian Wushuang is not very clear. If he understands the laws of the universe, what level can he reach in the Sea of Laws? Can he pass through the 6th floor? He didn't know. But what is certain is that his perception of the laws of the universe is much higher than the 9 kings. King of 9 calamities, your divine power is not as strong as mine, and in the perception of the laws of the universe, you are far worse than me. Jian Wushuang chuckled. Pride. The king of Jiujia screamed, but his body was shocking and swept up. I saw his eyes cold with a trace of anger. 2nd calamity, big suppression. King 9 calm raised his hand again. In a moment, a brand new palm print was condensed again, and its power was obviously stronger than the previous seal of destruction. The sword is unparalleled, but it is still light, and the sword is casually smashed, and the palm print is defeated again. After the 2nd palm print was defeated, immediately a 3rd stronger palm print was formed. 3rd calamity, Rhubarb Kuan Yin. 4th calamity, Big Sky Seal. 5th calamity. I yelled in the trial ground, and in the trial ground, there were constantly new towering palm prints condensing, and one line was stronger than the other, and the continuous swords were crushed and bombarded. And with this palm print crushed out, the breath of the 9 kings of the calamity is also rising with it. Okay? Wu Jian's eyes were a little stunned. He could feel these palm prints displayed by the king of 9 calamities, and the pressure on him continued to increase. If he can easily handle the 1st and 2nd palm prints, then the 3rd and 4th palm prints will not make him so light. Moreover, this palm print power is still improving. Is this the strongest masterpiece of Jiujia Wang's fame? Jian Wushuang nodded secretly. In the information that Supreme Master Xinghua gave him about King Jiulong, he mentioned the strongest mastery created by King Jiulong. This is the strongest terrible science, and its name is Jiujia. Or the title of King Jiujia is actually based on his abilities. 9 disasters represent the 9 heavenly palm prints. These 9 palm prints are constantly gaining momentum, and their power is constantly improving. In addition, the power of the 9 rules of the universe that have been realized by the 9 robbers has also been applied to the peerless studies, making these 9 palm prints even more terrible. Once upon a time, King 9 calamities used this set of unparalleled skills to confront the Supreme Strong. Chapter 41-27. 3 more arrived today. Outside the trial ground, the king of the 9th calamity shows off his fame. I heard that there are 9 types of this mastery, and the more powerful and horrible he is, the more he has carried the Supreme Master with this mastery. He even praised him for his mastery. However, the sword unmatched with him now. Not only the strength of the divine power is above him, but even the perception of the laws of the universe is higher than him. Just do not know if he can perform this feat. Can he win it? Look, I'm looking forward to this battle now. The strong men who watched the battle all talked. Before Jian Wushuang fought against King Jiujia, basically no one was optimistic about Jian Wushuang, and they all believed that Jian Wushuang would be defeated. But until now, Jian Wushuang has shown a stronger strength in the trial ground than Jiujia Wang, and even after the perception of the laws of the universe is higher than Jiujia Wang, these people dare not think that this sword is unmatched. Definitely lost, but gradually a little more suspense. Banging, as mighty as prison, flooded the entire trial space. Those horrifying palm prints, powerful, brought increasing pressure on Jian Wushuang. Of course, These pressures have always been within the range of Jian Wushuang. In a blink of an eye, the 9-style palm print, the 9-jailed king has already performed the first 8 styles. And this 8-style palm print, the first 7 styles, the sword Wushuang are all able to resist the Wu Chong divine sword with ease. Only the 8th style just now, although the sword Wushuang resisted, but the body was slightly lowered by the bombardment. It looks a bit embarrassing. However, the 9th palm print of King Jiujia has begun to take shape. This palm print, under the continuous accumulation of the first 8 types of palm prints, the power has reached the extreme. At the moment of molding, even Jian Wu's pupils could not help shrinking. This palm feels several times stronger than the 8th palm just now. If he only talks about the perception of Tao, he may already be able to surpass him. Jian Wushuang secretly said. Jian Wushuang is in Kendo, and his accomplishments are extremely high. The first stage of the Kendo universe's origins has been completed, and with the continuous progress in these years, it is estimated that it is relatively strong in the ultimate domination. However, these 9 kings have stayed at the level of ultimate for dozens of times of chaos. Such a long period of time has not only allowed him to reach a very high level of awareness of the laws of the universe, but he can even match his understanding of Tao. General Supreme. The famous 9th masterpiece he created, even if the final 9th palm has not reached the level of extreme extinction, it is estimated that the difference is not too much. But the more so, the light in the sword's eyes grew brighter. That's a bit interesting. Jian Wushuang smiled, and there was a hint of excitement on his face. Yeah, just let your palm to test my progress in Kendo over the years. In the space of the trial ground, Jian Wushuang looked up at the huge palm print that was slowly rolling down and felt the amazing power contained in that palm print. But on his body was the power of strong cosmic laws, accompanied by a large amount of Kendo universe. The origins are swept up in madness, and these are obviously 2 very different forces. At this moment, they are perfectly combined. The law of the universe and the origin of the Kendo universe are perfectly combined. Jian Wushuang's achievements in the purple blood secret at this moment is perfectly reflected, and his 5 knuckle fingers at this moment also firmly hold the hilt of the Wu weeping sword. Toward the 9 the king of calamity is cut down. The sword came out, the world was shocked. It is impossible to use any words to describe the sword that Sword's warriors wielded. This sword, spreading thousands of feet, is like the Shindian that tore the night, splitting the entire starry sky in half, shining like the sun, and hanging like a river in the sky. This sword was realized by Jian Wushuang in the Kendo for nearly 300,000 years, and it was his strongest sword after the baptism of Nirvana pool in his life. This sword combines the strength of his 8,000 times the power of God, the fusion of his first priority after breaking through the purple blood book, the perfect combination of the application of the laws of the universe and the origin of Kendo universe. This sword has no name, but it is the strongest sword in addition to the gifted swordsman. At this moment, everyone outside the temple raised their heads, as if looking at the starry sky in the trial field as if in a horror. The path that penetrated the heavens and the earth, smashed the sun and the moon, and opened their mouths gradually. The stunning sword, without any hindrance, collided directly with the strongest palm of the 9 thug kings. The roar of terror sounded, and the entire proving ground was instantly caught in a terrifying storm of divine power. The 2 terrible mites rushed madly and shattered everything. Halfway, the dust settled. Jian Wushuang and Jiujia Wang are still standing face to face in the middle of the testing ground. Jian Wushuang has a strange smile on his face, but Jiujia Wang's eyes are shocking at the moment. You actually blocked my 9th palm? The king of 9 robbers looked at Jian Wushuang unbelievably. The palm of your hand is very strong, purely on the level of extinction. My sword should not be as good as you, but my perception of the laws of the universe, and even the use of the origin of the Kendo universe, is much higher than you, so this time collision, you and I will fight with each other. Jian Wushuang straight. That is right, the final result was that Jian Wushuang was undefeated, and the king of 9 kings did not win. The 2 attacked and collided, and eventually they were annihilated, and they were quite equal. For this result, Jian Wushuang was able to accept it, but for King Jiujia, it was not acceptable. He only practiced for more than 300,000 years, but his perception of the laws of the universe was so much higher than mine. Even if I became famous and excelled in school, he could rely on swordsmanship to confront him. King Jiujia clenched his hands. My heart is shaking. King of the 9 calamities. And Jian Wushuang looked at him again. You lowered your attitude and came to fight with me so that you could come up with 2 inferior rules god fruit and 200,000 source stones to poison my middle rule god fruit. From the beginning to the end you are so confident, but if your strength is only to the extent that you are now exposed, it would be too disappointing to me. Disappointing you? The king of 9 kings looked completely ugly, and his eyes were full of anger. Okay, good, sword unparalleled, you have angered me completely. I originally wanted to fight with a junior who practiced for 300,000 years. I do indeed want to use his talent, but now. The king of Jizai's eyes suddenly looked cold, but then he suddenly raised his head, and his blood-stained pupil stared at Jian Wushuang. Next moment, suddenly, with the king of 9 calamities as the center, a violent blast of breath exploded, and his entire body began to swell quickly. Chapter 41:28. The first is more. The terrifying breath swept away, directly rolling up a void storm, and numerous winds roared and roared. At the center of the storm, the 9 calamity king's skin became dark, and a crisscross pattern emerged from his body. Jian Wushuang, you are a 3rd-level master who hasn't practiced for 300,000 years. You can force me to show my talents. I can be proud of it. King Jiujia took his hands and looked at Jian Wushuang indifferently. Within a circle of 100 feet around him, a circular storm circle was automatically formed, and a violent storm of voids swept across the square and roared. At the same time, a mysterious and profound law breath came out from those mysterious patterns on his body. At this moment, he has reached the peak of his momentum. King of the 9th calamity, the talent has been used. Zhuguang's talented magical power, Devil's Evolution, is enough to make his powers suddenly multiply several times or even nearly 10 times. It is definitely a magical power that has greatly improved its combat power. This sword Wushuang also awakened his talents before his magical powers. It's supernatural. I do indeed know if I can stop the 9 kings. I can't see it, but I was able to force the king of Jiuzai to show his talents. If this sword is unparalleled, it will be amazing. Many of the powerhouses in the trial battle have been discussing. In the space of the testing ground, watching the dramatic changes in the Jiujia King's body, and the moment of soaring breath, Jian Wushuang's eyebrows could not help raising. This is the Jiojia's awakening talent? It looks good. The sword is unparalleled so far. Call out. As soon as the words fell, the king of Jiujia suddenly flashed in his eyes, his body turned into a black stream, dragging a series of afterimages in the starry sky, rushing towards the sword unparalleled. This speed. At least several times faster. Jian Wushuang saw this. His pupils shrank for a moment, and a little shock appeared on his face. With a long laugh, King Jiujia quickly sealed his hands in the void. Mark of destruction. Suddenly, a horrible power radiated from the king of Jiolong. Countless stormy breaths were evacuated from the void, then blasted from all directions, and finally condensed together, constantly twisting, forming a towering giant. This giant hand is thousands of feet wide and extremely magnificent. A devastating atmosphere spreads, which is appalling. The Great Destruction Seal is only the first master of the 9 styles, which was the first palm of the 9 styles. This palm was previously displayed and defeated by Jian Wushuang's understatement. But now, the same palm, the power of which has increased by almost 10 times directly. This palm shot gave Jian Wushuang the feeling that he was almost approaching the 9th palm print. It seems that I have to be a little more serious. Jian Wushuang smiled slightly, followed by a sudden look up, watching the huge fingerprints that were almost as strong as to be degraded under the blessing of talent and supernatural power. Next, the invincible, getting closer and closer to Jian Wushuang. Jian Wushuang's black hair and black robes were blown wildly by wild winds. Outside the trial ground, one after another, looking at Jian Wushuang through the black mirror. Everyone was watching how Jian Wushuang dealt with the king of the ninth calamity after casting his talents. Suddenly, the sword is unparalleled. Very casual sword. It's like a beginner who has just used a sword, practicing simple chopping. Almost everyone outside the trial ground can see that Jian Wushuang is a very common sword, at least it is indeed in the form of moves. At most, it is the origin of the Kendo universe, which is extremely rich in the laws of the universe. Such a sword, if faced with the Nine Calamities King who has never shown his talents, may still be able to resist, but now the Nine Calamity Kings who have talents have been cast, his combat power has increased nearly tenfold, and the destruction of the Indian might scared nearly 10 times. Is this kind of attack such a simple and arbitrary sword that Jian Wushuang can resist? This sword is unparalleled. What's going on? Don't you know your enemy, but have you given up? It shouldn't be, at least he should also use his talents and try to compete. Many of the powerhouses in the trial battlefield showed their doubts. However, the next moment, the moment when Jian Wushuang's extremely random sword collided with the huge palm print of the Nine Kings of Calamity, the expressions on everyone's faces instantly stagnated. I saw that the huge palm with a width of 1,000 feet was ruthlessly cut by the sword light. The entire palm collapsed instantly, and the endless divine power was scattered in all directions. Even the sword light power that the sword Wushuang had cast was not yet completely exhausted, still continued to be headed to the King of Nine Calamities. The Zhujiawang was taken aback, and he quickly shot again before resisting this way of Jingguang, but his figure was shocked a few steps away. Standing still again, Zhujiawang's head was a little dazed. Not only him, but many of the powerhouses in the proving grounds were also shocked. How could this be? The King of Nine Calamities has already performed his talents. His strength has skyrocketed nearly tenfold. How can this sword Wushuang play such an understatement? It's so easy to downplay the frontal defeat. What is going on? I didn't understand. I thought this sword Wushuang had given up. Most of the people who watched the battle outside the trial ground were inexplicable. They didn't know what had just happened. Why the sword skills that Jian Wushuang could cast at will can easily defeat the King of Jiujia. And in that solitary void, the looks of the Supreme, and the Great Axe all became somewhat dignified. Maybe others can't see what happened in that scene, but all three of them are top and supreme, but they can be seen at a glance. The power of will. The Great Axe said, "This sword is unparalleled, and it has such a mighty willpower." The King of Nine Emperors showed his talents and sword nearly tenfold. As a result, the unstoppable skills he was able to defeat were still defeated by him at will. The willpower he possessed was very terrible. The improvement of sword power is definitely more than 10 times. Supreme of Blood Wave is a look of astonishment. His power of will. Gafu Supreme stared slightly. If this seed is correct, this power of will should be granted by the laws of the universe. That is to say, this little guy once had the special opportunity was recognized by the laws of the universe, and a willpower was given to them by the laws of the universe. Given by the laws of the universe in person, Blood Wave's supreme eyes brightened, and a smile appeared on his face. This boy has given us a big surprise. Chapter 41-29. Second more. It was a big surprise indeed. The law of the universe is supreme, as strong as the supreme, or even the top one. The law of the universe is only used to comprehend and use it, so as to enhance its own strength. It is too difficult to get the recognition of the laws of the universe. In the universe, under normal circumstances, only by obtaining such an inferior opportunity can it be recognized by the laws of the universe. The laws of the universe can give willpower, and the willpower given by the laws of the universe is also powerful. Like Jian Wushuang now, the willpower that directly increases his strength by 10 times is undoubtedly very high. With such a strong willpower, it can completely bridge the gap brought about by Zhujiawang's talents. Even Jiu Jiawang's talents have improved his power by less than 10 times. The willpower of Shangjian Wushuang, so Jian Wushuang was able to defeat his mastery with a single sword, and it was able to explain it. Giant Axe smiled supremely. Even the magical powers of the show are still being crushed. This time, King Jiuzai is about to plant a big heel. Bloodwave Supreme laughed, and while he was speaking, he looked at the Gafu Supreme beside him. The King of Nine Calamities was personally introduced into the Palace of Life by the Lord of Gave, and the King of Nine Calvaries naturally paid more attention to the King of Nine Calories. Follow me? It's a little bit earlier to say this now. Gafu Supreme glanced at him indifferently and replied indifferently. Huh. Bloodwave Supreme heard the words for a moment, then wondered, Gaifu Supreme, is there anything wrong? Supreme Gav did not answer him, but had turned his head again, looking at the sword unparalleled in the Shuangguang mirror. Deep in his old murky eyes, there was a faint flash of light. Recognized by the laws of the universe, and even given such a powerful willpower, this little guy named Jian Wushuang is indeed very good, but if that's the case, I'm afraid it's not enough. Talk to yourself. As the person who brought Jiujie back personally, he paid most attention to King Jiujie. Even though King Jiujie has been unable to break through and become the supreme over the years, before the status of the Palace of Life was greatly inferior, Supreme Governance was slightly disappointed with him. But disappointment turned to disappointment, and Gaver Supreme was still silently paying attention to the growth of the King of Nine Calamities. In the nearly 20 Chaos eras, the King of Nine Kings has rarely shot, and no one knows where his strength has reached, but Supreme Gap is the exception. Supreme Gav knows the King of the Nine Calamities the most. To be precise, every progress of the King of the Nine Calamities will be falsely accused of the Supreme Gav, so Supreme Gav knows that in the trial field, even the talented supernatural power has been Jiuzao Wang, who was still crushed by the sword unparalleled, has a stronger whole card. It depends on Jiujie, and he is willing to reveal his card. Gav muttered, and then his expression returned to calm again, and he stopped speaking. Hearing the words, Supreme Bloodwave and Supreme Axe, the two looked at each other face to face, and a hint of shock appeared in their hearts. King Jiujia, there is a stronger whole card? In the trial ground, countless stars flickered, forming a bright sea of stars. The King of Nine Calamities has gradually calmed down from the previous shock and incredible. His eyes were cold, and he stared at Jian Wushuang tightly and said lowly, Jian Wushuang, there should be a special power in the sword you just had. What is this power? It is willpower. Jian Wushuang did not intend to conceal it, because he knew that among the strong men of the life shrine in appearance warfare, there must be someone who could see this willpower. This power of will was recognized by the law of the universe under the coincidence of chance, and was given by the law of the universe himself. He can directly increase my attack power by 10 times. Jian Wushuang said directly. Is that so? The King of Nine Calamities became clear. No wonder, I cast my talents and will still be crushed by your swordsmanship. But following Jiujia, he immediately laughed again. Jian Wushuang, I have to admit that you are a real genius, and you are also the most antithetical one among all the geniuses I have ever seen, even me. When the 3 levels dominate the realm, they are far from you, let alone you have only cultivated for 300,000 years. King Jiujia said words of admiration, but his eyes became colder. But it's a pity that you met me. If I give you some more time, it won't take long. It is estimated that millions of years, tens of millions of years, you will fight with me again, in the same realm. Maybe I might really lose in your hands, but now well. Jiujia smiled coldly. Boom! Suddenly, an unprecedentedly powerful breath, centered on King Nine Calamities, has skyrocketed. This breath is completely different from the previous breath of King Jiulong. It is full of a sense of Shuanao Avenue. Once this breath comes out, the void of the trial site is like it can't bear it, and it emits a kakaka sound similar to glass breaking. Immediately, Jian Wushuang saw that the space around the trial ground and the scene began to change. Centered on King Jiujia, a huge and magnificent force directly extended. This power is enough to suffocate and tremble any master. This kind of power does not even feel like a master practitioner can possess it. What is it? Jian Wushuang's face changed immediately. This power gave him a very familiar feeling. This transcendent, completely overriding the power of the master, he has experienced in the Black Hawk Supreme, experienced in the Bloodwave Supreme, and experienced in the Great Axe Supreme. That's extreme power. How can it be? Jian Wushuang's eyes widened, staring at the 9 calamities in front of him. The surrounding trial space has completely changed its appearance into a unique world. This world is hazy, but it has the sky, the earth, and the mountains and mountains. The whole is the structure of a world. But the key is the power of the world of this architecture should not be the power that the master can master. This is. When Jian Wushuang looked at the surrounding structure, he had guessed at the bottom of his heart, but his face became hard to look. Outside of the trial ground, among those who watched the battle, those with strong strength eventually dominated, as well as the few supreme strong people, seeing the changes in the trial ground, they all boiled up. I miss the kingdom of God. It's a thought of the kingdom of God. Even supreme, it is only possible to master the kingdom of God if you reach a certain level. The 9 kings of the calamity even exhibited the kingdom of God. Outside the trial ground, all the people who watched the battle were boiling. Chapter 4130. 3 more arrive today. One thought of the kingdom of God, one of the most powerful means of mastery of the Supreme. You can think of it as forming a great kingdom of God, with the kingdom of God as the core, to suppress the strength of your opponents to the greatest extent, and at the same time to make your own strength soar. The principle is actually similar to the gifted magical primitive universe given to Jian Wushuang by the laws of the universe. Of course, the strongest of the primitive universe is the enhancement of its own strength, but the suppression effect can only be considered as ordinary. And the thought of the kingdom of God is based on the power of the framework of the kingdom of God. This does not have a great effect among the strong men of the same level. For example, a supreme master performing a mind of God will not affect a strong man who is also at the highest level. It's too big. This conception of the kingdom of God is only for most of the supreme, just to pave the way to becoming the top supreme, and to lay the foundation for the development of a true kingdom of God in the future. However, if this trick is applied to low-level practitioners, it will be of great effect. For example, if a supreme master casts a thought on the kingdom of God for a group of masters, then even if there are a large number of these masters, they can exert their own strength. I am afraid there are not many. And now, the one who displays the mind of the kingdom of God is only the 9 kings who dominate the level. These 9 robbers are amazing. A thought of the kingdom of God, even if it is a supreme level strongman, it will take a long time to study it before it can be mastered. He just masters the level and has mastered this trick? 20 chaos times did not make a shot. This shot was scary enough. Although he still failed to break through to become the supreme, but by this means, I am afraid no one can deny that he has the possibility of becoming supreme. Yes, this trick alone is estimated to be enough to make many high-level executives in the Palace of Life pay a lot of attention to him. Those who watched the war are talking about it. Prior to that, the high level of the Life Shrine basically did not give any hope to the King of Jiolong, and thought that the King of Jiolong would be the ultimate dominating level in his lifetime, and it would be almost impossible to break into the Supreme. But now, the King of 9 Calamities can demonstrate the potential of the Kingdom of God, and he has been able to prove his potential. Even if he finally lost to Jian Wushuang in this battle, he still can prove himself. And in the eyes of many people present, the King of 9 Calamities even exhibited the Kingdom of God, and there was basically no suspense in that battle. In that separate void. A thought of the Kingdom of God? The axe shining in the eyes of the great axe, staring at the scene in the basal mirror, but nodded secretly. It can be considered to be barely comprehended. Being able to comprehend this trick at the level of the master, the 9 kings of the calamity do not waste the resources of my life temple. The 9 kings of calamity can be considered to prove themselves, but I don't know if Jian Wushuang can still find an opportunity under this mind-bending kingdom of God. Bloodwave Supreme said. I don't see it. The giant axe shook his head supremely. That's not necessarily. This sword Wushuang has not yet exerted his talents and magical powers. If he exerts his magical powers, maybe he can fight it. Bloodwave Supreme said. The two talked, while the next to the Supreme Gava was still standing there, without words, but his gaze was always looking at the scene of Shuangguang, the trial ground. The entire trial space has now been completely occupied by the illusory kingdom of God. While in the kingdom of God, Jian Wushuang is also able to feel the majestic strength suppressed by the surrounding sky. Jian Wushuang, to be honest, I never thought about this trick before, but I didn't expect that your understanding of the laws of the universe would be so high, and you still have such a powerful willpower. In order to defeat you, I can only do this trick. This move is also my biggest hole card. You can feel the power of it. King Zhujia laughed. Jian Wu's eyes have already narrowed. He is feeling the power of the surroundings to suppress him. This feeling of oppression, and the dim shadows of the surrounding world, no accident should be a thought of the kingdom of God. Jian Wushuang secretly said. He had heard Supreme Master Ling Yun's preaching, and Ling Yun Supreme talked about many things in many aspects, and he also mentioned this idea of the kingdom of God. The thought of the kingdom of God is the means by which the Supreme is qualified to master it. Even the Supreme, it is difficult to master, and for the Master, it is even dare not to think about it. China, this alone is no lack of genius. However, Jian Wushuang also saw that although the 9 kings of the kingdom had realized the mind of the kingdom of God, it should not be fully grasped. To be precise, his mind of the kingdom of God was only a structure, but it had not been truly perfected. Otherwise, the kingdom of God alone, the suppression effect is enough to make him unable to move. But now, although Jian Wushuang has been greatly suppressed, the action and even the fierce battle are all right. King of 9 robbers. Jian Wushuang suddenly looked up. King Zhujia also looked at Zhao Jinshuang. But this moment, boom! A coercion from the depths of the soul came to this world. Talented, amazing life. This genius awakened by Jian Wushuang in the nirvana pool of life, for the first time, appeared in the world. Suddenly, the violent winds in the void, the rotating stars, the twinkling stars, and the surrounding great kingdom of God, all stagnated. Time seems to freeze at this moment. At this moment of coercion, King Zhujia's eyes suddenly opened, and an unbelievable surge appeared on his face. And his body was standing there, motionless, but the thought of the kingdom around him still began to collapse rapidly, and the entire kingdom of God had disappeared in a blink of an eye. The sword has no body shape, and it has already come to the king of Jiujia. Wu Chang's magic sword pierced straight out. Without any obstruction, he directly penetrated the of Jiujia. Suddenly, King Zhujia's body, completely condensed by the trial site, immediately collapsed, and King Zhujia's consciousness returned to the body. The king of 9 calamities, who was just as impressed by the idea of the kingdom of God, was so inexplicable. Defeated. There is silence outside the trial ground. All the people who watched the battle stood there in amazement at this moment, silent. The eyes of King Jozuan of King Josai have been opened, but the eyes are full of incredible. He was defeated. He didn't even have time to reveal the power of the kingdom of God, so he was inexplicably defeated by Jian Wushuang? He didn't even know how he failed? It's not just him. Most people around me don't understand how he was defeated by Jian Wushuang. And the king of Jiujia began to recall the scene just now, that moment that you're tuning in to the Passion Pages YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.